Chapter 79. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are read for free. Novels with a deeper meaning that cannot be found online are all available here. After dinner, Gu Jiao tidied up the house and went to the west room to put a blanket over little Jing Kong. Then, she went back to her room to sleep. 2 months had passed since the last time she had a dream. Gu Jiao had not had a dream since then. Unexpectedly, she had a dream again that night. However, she did not dream of Xiao Lulang, but of herself. She dreamed that she had become the daughter of the Gu family and met Gu Jinyu from the hot spring villa. She also dreamed that they had returned to the capital together. She moved into a richly ornamented house. There were more than 10 servants serving her every day. There were also family members who doted on her, that she had never met before. The servants respectfully called her Miss Gu, but the good times did not last long. Gu Jinyu was beautiful, demure and elegant. She was educated and well-spoken. On the other hand, she was ugly, uncouth, illiterate and clumsy with her speech. Compared to Gu Jinyu, she was a complete joke. Everyone said that the Gu family had brought back a wild girl from the countryside. The servants started to mock her. The daughters started to distance themselves from her. Even the family members who used to dote on her did not seem to know how to face her. In order to get back what was rightfully hers, she did some bad things under the instigation of others. This caused everyone to be extremely disappointed in her. In the end, she was sent to a villa outside the capital. She was depressed and heartbroken every day. Finally, she died of an illness in the cold winter. When Gu Jiao woke up, she wondered why she had such a dream. When she dreamed about Xiao Lulang, she knew that it would happen. However, it was different when it happened to her. It was not because of anything else. It was because the her in the dream was not her at all. She was not ignorant and incompetent, nor was she clumsy with her speech. She did not care about what others thought of her. She would not be jealous of Gu Jinyu. She would not be instigated by others. She would not use those stupid tricks on Gu Jinyu either. If she really wanted to kill someone, she would do it more cleanly than wiping the floor. As for being heartbroken because he couldn't get the love of his family, that was even more ridiculous. So why did she have such a wild dream? Was there something wrong with his brain? On the other hand, Xiao Lulang and Feng Lin's carriage had finally arrived at the prefectural city, Ping City, after a long and arduous journey. They didn't arrive early, and the inns next to the examination hall were all full. They settled for the next best thing, and chose an inn 1 street away. 2 taels of silver for a room was simply asking for a sky-high price. However, there was nothing he could do about it. Who asked the examinees to wait? He could only obediently hand over the silver. When the capital examination was over, the first batch of failed candidates would leave, and the price would drop by half. When the academy envoys were also over, the price would drop by another half. Feng Lin and the coachman ate something unclean on the road and had a stomachache. Luckily, Gu Jiao had prepared some diarrhea medicine. Xiao Lulang was fine, but he was not used to sleeping every night. 2 days later, the capital examination began. The location of the capital examination was at the Ping City Examination Hall. The examinees entered the hall at 5 a.m. Different from the examination documents of the county examination, the examination documents of the capital examination were given to each examinee. The examination documents were called examination documents by the prefectural government. The examinee's name, examination shed, and seat number were written on it. There were 4 examination sheds in the examination hall in Ping City. Sheds were mostly for the top examinees in the county examination, and Xiao Lulang was also in one of them. The big examination shed was divided into numerous small examination rooms. Each examinee had 1 room. The space was not big, but there was a desk, a cushion and a narrow wooden bed. Other than the examination documents, the examinees were not allowed to bring in anything else. The examinees' brushes, ink, paper, and inkstone were all provided by the examination hall. In addition, there were also 3 meals a day and a blanket for the night. If the examinees were tired, they could rest at any time. As long as they did not cheat or violate the rules of the examination hall, no one would interfere, even if they slept there for 4 days and 4 nights. The capital examination did not have a one-off situation. Therefore, the examinees had to obediently complete the 3 rounds of examination. Other than when they went to the toilet, they were not allowed to leave the examination hall. Once they left, regardless of the situation, they could not return to the examination hall. The first round was on the scriptures. The scriptures for the capital examination required the examinees to know at least 3 scriptures. The classic of filial piety and the Analects of Confucius were a must. The rest of the examinees could choose from the Book of Songs and the Rites of Zhou, and write from memory according to the designated paragraph. This seemed simple, but one had to know that other than the classic of filial piety, which only had 2,369 words, the other 3 scriptures added up to more than 90,000 words. Even if the Rites of Zhou, which had the most words, was removed, there were still more than 50,000 words. The amount of memorization was huge. The number of questions for the scriptures was also very large. The fastest one could finish writing would be in the afternoon. Usually, there would be people handing in their papers one after another at dusk. Xiao Lulang only wrote for an hour before he stopped writing and went to sleep. His paper was covered under the white paper and pressed down with an inkstone. The invigilator was stunned. Was he finished? No, this was impossible. No one could answer so quickly, unless he had memorized the scriptures so well that he could write without thinking. This was not something that an ordinary genius could do. Who did he think he was? The former young chancellor? The young Marquis of Zhaodu? The invigilator felt that he most likely would not be able to answer, so he simply gave up writing. He was even the county examination's top case examinee. He was really an embarrassment to their county. After the examination, there was a person who came up to collect the papers. He would first paste the name, and then put it into a special box. Even the invigilator was not able to see the paper. When they saw it, the name had already been masked, so they would not know which paper belonged to which examinee. Maybe it was because Xiao Lulang had left a deep impression on the invigilator in the first round. For the next 2 rounds, the invigilator also paid special attention to him. The second round of essays tested the examinee's ability to write. There were not many restrictions on the wording and style of writing. It could be considered the easiest round of the 3 rounds. Xiao Lulang only wrote for an hour before he covered his paper and went to sleep. Can you not give up on yourself like this? Essays are so simple. You don't even know how to write this? How did you become the county examination's top case examinee? Are the examinees of this batch so useless? The last round was an 8-part essay. It took 2 days to complete, which showed how difficult it was. Especially this time, the questions were personally set by Provincial Governor Zhuang from the capital. Provincial Governor Zhuang had taken 2 completely unrelated sentences from the Analects of Confucius. Poverty without flattery, wealth without arrogance, quick to handle matters but cautious in speech. He had the examinees forcefully put them together to solve the question. In less than a quarter of an hour, 2 examinees collapsed from the pressure. They were carried out, and the exam was cancelled. The invigilator secretly cursed. Such a difficult exam. Why didn't you give this grandpa a paw? He thought that Xiao Lulang would give up and go to sleep in less than an hour. Who knew that he would sit there without moving? Poverty without flattery, wealth without arrogance, quick to handle matters but cautious in speech. Why did Sir Zhuang give such a difficult assignment? Aheng, help me do it. The young girl's bright smile flashed through his mind. It was vivid in his mind, as if it had happened yesterday. The newest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are also updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that cannot be found online are all available here. https://www.zhhbqg.com/89642_896/115888388. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhhbqg.com Biku Pavilion's mobile reading website, zhhbqg.com. Chapter 80. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are read for free. Novels that cannot be found on the internet are all available here. On the evening of the fourth day, the exam ended. Feng Lin had been waiting here since early in the morning. After waiting for an entire day, the other examinees came out one after another. Only Xiao Lulang was nowhere to be seen. He could not help but worry. Just as he was wondering if he should ask the people inside, he saw Xiao Lulang come out with a cold expression. Feng Lin hurriedly went up to him and found that his complexion was not good. He asked, "What's wrong? Are you not feeling well? Or did you not do well?" "It's nothing," Xiao Lulang said lightly. Feng Lin heard that his voice was fine and thought that it should not be a problem with his body. He comforted him. "I just heard from the examinees that this time's exam questions were especially difficult. Don't be discouraged, they might not even do as well as you. Let's go back to the inn," Xiao Lulang said as he turned around and walked in the direction of the inn. Feng Lin wanted to say something but stopped. He had never seen Xiao Lulang like this before. Even though he had always been cold, he was not so cold that he did not dare to approach him. Xiao Liulang's body was filled with a chilling aura, as if he would do something terrible in the next second. "Lu Lulang, wait for me." Although Feng Lin was afraid, he still gritted his teeth and chased after him. He did not call him Brother Xiao anymore. After all, he was older than Xiao Lulang. The reason he called him Brother Xiao was because Xiao Lulang had saved him. But the two of them had spent New Year's Eve together and had a strong friendship. If he continued to call him Brother Xiao, it would be too distant. Xiao Lulang used his walking stick and did not walk as fast as Feng Lin. Feng Lin caught up with him in a short while. The two of them went back to the inn together. When they passed by a tea house, two middle-aged men wearing brocade clothes walked out. One of them inadvertently glanced at Xiao Lulang. At first, he didn't pay much attention to it, but he suddenly realized something and turned his head to look at Xiao Lulang. At this moment, Xiao Lulang and Feng Lin had already crossed the street and were heading towards the inn on the other side. His eyes followed Xiao Liulang's back until he completely disappeared around the corner. "Lord Zhuang, what's wrong? Did you see someone familiar? Do you want me to go and greet them?" The person who asked the question was the governor of Pingcheng, surnamed Luo. Zhuang Xianji shook his head. "There's no need. He's not an acquaintance of mine. We just look similar." The young marquis was already dead. He had personally dug out the young marquis corpse from the ruins of the directorate. The corpse had already been burned into a charred corpse by the fire. No matter how much time had passed, he would never be able to forget that tragic sight. Or perhaps, they didn't look alike at all, but he was just seeing things. Looking at the young marquis's appearance and talent, it was impossible to find a second person like him in the entire 6 nations. "Do you need me to confirm it?" Governor Luo saw that Lord Zhuang seemed to be very concerned about the person who had mistaken him for someone else. He couldn't help but suggest that he go and take a look. Zhuang Xianji shook his head again. "There's no need. That acquaintance has already passed away." There was no need to confirm if it was a dead person. Xiao Lulang and Feng Lin returned to the inn. As soon as they entered, they heard someone shouting, "Feng Duanzi!" Feng Lin's hair stood on end. The shadow of his childhood instantly appeared on top of his head. He was no longer the Duanzi from back then. He had lost weight. Feng Lin looked over and saw a scholarly-looking youth rushing down the stairs excitedly. He came to Feng Lin and said with a smile, "It's really you, Feng Duanzi. You're good. You've changed so much that I almost couldn't recognize you." Who is he?" The youth's gaze landed on Xiao Lulang. Xiao Lulang was even better looking than a girl. People couldn't help but take a few more glances at him. Moreover, he wasn't afraid of being beaten up by Feng Lin. Just now, the youth was first attracted by Xiao Lulang before noticing Feng Lin, who was beside Xiao Lulang. Feng Lin also recognized the youth and said in surprise, "Du Ruhan." The youth smiled and patted Feng Lin's shoulder. "It's me. It's really you." Feng Lin also smiled and introduced him to Xiao Lulang. Lulang, do you still remember him? Little Tummy. The three of us went to private school together when we were young. The youth looked at Xiao Lulang in disbelief. After a while he said to Feng Lin, "You must have mistaken him for someone else. He's not Lulang." Feng Lin said with certainty, "I'm not mistaken. It's Lulang." The youth looked at Xiao Lulang suspiciously. "That little Lulang who moved away after staying for a year?" Feng Lin said, "Yes, it's him. Less than 2 years after he moved away, your family moved away too. Now that I think about it, we haven't seen each other for more than 10 years. The youth still felt that the other party was not Xiao Lulang. He said to Feng Lin, "If I can recognize you, why can't I recognize him?" Little Lulang was not that good looking. Actually, Feng Lin did not recognize Xiao Lulang at first glance. It was only when he saw Xiao Liulang's travel permit that he knew that he was his childhood neighbor. In addition, Xiao Lulang had saved his life, so he had no doubts about Xiao Liulang's identity. As for Xiao Lulang not remembering the past, that was normal. It had been more than 10 years. Xiao Lulang was not even 7 years old when he moved away. What could a 6 or 7-year-old kid remember? That kid was very timid when he was young. He always hid behind his mother. Xiao Lulang went upstairs first. The youth and Feng Lin followed behind and whispered. The youth was the one who spoke. "Lulang is different now. He is very brave. He even saved me." Feng Lin said, "He is different." The youth glanced at Xiao Liulang's back. He felt that the other party had the aura of a young master from the capital. This aura was hard to detect if one had not seen it before. "What's wrong with his leg?" the youth asked in a bad mood in front of Xiao Lulang. "Half a year ago he was injured while saving me. He is now receiving treatment." Feng Lin said guiltily and asked, "Speaking of which, where did you go after you moved away?" "I went to the capital," the youth said. Feng Lin's eyes widened. "You went to the capital?" It was Feng Lin's dream to go to the capital. Unfortunately, the capital was heavily guarded. For commoners like them, unless they were going to the capital for the exam, it was impossible to get a travel permit to the capital. The youth chuckled. "My aunt is a concubine in the capital. She brought our whole family over. Now are you still jealous?" Feng Lin did not say anything. The youth laughed. "I lied to you. Let's go." The three of them ate dinner together. From the youth, Feng Lin found out that he was studying in a famous academy in the capital. 2 years ago, he passed the exam and was preparing for the provincial exam in August. This time, he was traveling with his uncle to broaden his horizons. Throughout the meal, only the youth and Feng Lin conversed. Xiao Lulang was a man of few words and did not like to talk to others. This kid was not like this before. After Xiao Lulang returned to the house, the youth pulled Feng Lin aside and whispered. Feng Lin said softly, "His mother and brother have passed away. It has not been easy for him these years." "Oh." The youth did not say anything else. After a while he changed the topic. "You're going to take the exam this year, right? I will wait for you in the capital." Feng Lin thought for a while and said, "I will take the exam with Lulang." The youth pursed his lips. "How do you know he will pass? That kid's brain is not good. Have you forgotten that he was scolded by the teacher?" Even if he could not remember how Xiao Lulang looked like when he was young, the youth did not forget Xiao Liulang's embarrassing past. He was not stupid. It was just that his reaction time was slower than others. This kind of person could work, but study would be difficult. Feng Lin said seriously, "Lulang is different now. He passed the county exam, and this time, although the questions are difficult, I believe he will pass the exam." The youth laughed evilly. "Let's make a bet. He will not pass." Feng Lin decisively asked him to leave. No one could look down on Xiao Lulang, not even his childhood friends. After being chased out of the inn by Feng Lin, the young man no longer had the mood to stroll around. Bored, he returned to the governor's office. When the guards saw him, they respectfully opened the door for him. As soon as he stepped into the courtyard, he was stopped in his tracks by a stern voice. "Where have you been? Why are you back so late?" The young man turned around embarrassedly, smiled and said, "Hello, uncle. Didn't you go to mark the exam papers?" How did you finish so quickly? Provincial Governor Zhuang sternly said. Don't change the topic. I'm asking you, where have you been? The youth laughed dryly. I met 2 of my old neighbors in Song County and chatted with them for a while. Dinner. I also ate with them. Provincial Governor Zhuang coldly said. Do you think I will believe you? Did you go and do something indecent again? I promised your aunt to bring you out, not to let you idle around. Guards, lock him in the room. Without my orders, he is not allowed to take half a step out. The youth cried out. I didn't. Uncle, I really went to meet some friends. They are staying at Yulian. One of them is called Feng Lin. The other is called Xiao Lulang. Xiao Lulang is this year's examinee. You just finished your perverted exam questions today. His face turned green. If you don't believe me, you can send someone to check. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8964286/115852814. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Bikago mobile reading website, zhbqg.com. Chapter 81. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel will be updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels will be read for free. All the novels that cannot be found online will be available here. After hearing this, Du Ruhan knew that there was no hope for him today. He hated his mouth. Why did he speak the truth at such a critical moment? Sure enough, when Governor Luo came to mediate the fight, Du Ruhan had already been served by Zhuang Xianji to the point that even his parents couldn't recognize him. Governor Luo asked awkwardly and respectfully, Sir, should we investigate those 2 people? Zhuang Xianji rejected him immediately. Is that fellow telling the truth? Governor Luo's mouth twitched. Young Master Du said that the questions you set were perverted. He was telling the truth. Gu Jiao knew nothing about what happened in Pingcheng. She was on the way to the hot spring villa. This morning, Second Master came to her personally and told her about this month's consultation. Although I know that we were talking about consultation, you know young Master Gu's situation. It is indeed inconvenient for him to go out. Second Master did not know that Gu Yan had come to see her not long ago, and that she had already given him a follow-up consultation. Gu Jiao paused. Okay. Second Master was stunned. She was so easy to talk to. I have been holding back all this time. Was it all for nothing? The weather was good, and the carriage moved quickly. They arrived at the villa in less than 2 hours. The attitude of the people in the villa towards them had changed greatly. Although the guards still looked serious, they were very polite. The servant who came to pick them up was the same person as last time. Her name was Yu Ye-er. Yu Ye-er led Gu Jiao, the second boss, and the old doctor to a pavilion near the small garden. The young master is soaking in the hot spring. Please wait for a moment. I will go and report to the young master. The hot spring was closer to the pavilion. Yu Ye-er was not sure where the young master wanted to see the doctor. If he wanted to go to the hot spring, there was no need to bring them to the main courtyard. Yu Ye-er went to ask the young master for instructions, and instructed a servant to bring some snacks and tea from the kitchen to serve Gu Jiao and the other 2. This treatment was much better than the previous time. The second boss tasted a mouthful of the rose cake and smiled from ear to ear. Is it really that good? Gu Jiao asked. The second boss smiled and said, The things in the Marquis estate are expensive not because they are delicious, but because you can't eat them. He wasn't eating snacks but glory. Woo, woo. While they were waiting, the sound of something crying came from the small garden. All 3 of them heard it. The old doctor followed the sound and asked in puzzlement, What's that sound? The second boss stopped eating and listened attentively, but he didn't hear anything. I'll go take a look. Gu Jiao said. Don't. The second boss wanted to stop her. But was Gu Jiao someone who could be stopped so easily? She got up and went down the steps to the little garden. She followed the sound and soon found the little thing trapped under the fence. It was a little puppy that had just been born. It was unknown how it got stuck in the fence, and there was a circle of thorns under the fence. The result was that the more it struggled, the more the thorns pierced into its flesh. It was in so much pain that its eyes were filled with tears. When it saw someone come, it didn't know if it was frightened or excited. It stuck out its little tongue, but it didn't expect to lick the thorns, causing it to whimper in pain. It really is a stupid little puppy. Gu Jiao squatted down and rubbed its furry little head. Don't move. The little puppy didn't understand, but it still moved. It was in so much pain. In order to save it, she had to first move the fence, and then pull out the thorns from the little puppy's body one by one. Gu Jiao chose the best position, and began to pull the fence. At this time, a servant girl wearing an apricot-colored vest came over. Who is it? Stop right now. Gu Jiao didn't stop. Gu Jiao had a small basket on her back, and was dressed like a village girl. The servant girl only felt that this dress was familiar, but did not think much of it. She strode over and grabbed Gu Jiao's small basket. I told you to stop, didn't you hear me? Gu Jiao calmly turned her head. Her cold gaze was like a knife, scaring the servant girl into letting go. Then the servant girl recognized her. It's you? Gu Jiao also recognized her. It was the servant who had rummaged through her pouch at Rejuvenation Hall and slandered her as a thief. She was Gu Jinyu's trusted aide called Yuru. Why are you here? Yuru frowned. She remembered that she had heard that the doctor from Rejuvenation Hall had come to examine the young master. Her face darkened. You're just a little medicine boy. You don't have to follow me every time. Gu Jiao was too lazy to pay attention to her and moved to pull the fence. Yuru scolded. What are you doing? That place is filled with young Miss Flowers. Are you worthy of ruining it? Woo! Woo! The puppy cried out in pain. Yuru glanced at it and sneered. Just because of a mutt? Your dog. Sure enough, like person like dog. Do you know how much one peony here costs? I'm selling you and your dog. Noisy. Gu Jiao frowned in annoyance and pulled the fence up. You. Yuru's expression changed and she pounced at her. Actually, when Gu Jiao pulled the fence up, she had avoided the peonies. However, when Yuru pounced on the fence, the end of the fence swept and broke one of the peonies. That was the one that bloomed the most beautifully. Yuru's face turned pale. She suddenly retreated a few steps far away from the scene. She covered her mouth with one hand and pointed at Gu Jiao with the other. You broke young Miss Flowers. You broke it yourself. You're blaming me. It was Yu Ya's voice. She came back after reporting to Gu Yan. Gu Yan told her to bring her to the hot springs. She happened to see this scene. Shameless, Yu Ya said. Yuru was Gu Jinyu's personal maid. Not many people in the villa dared to speak to her like this. Yuru's face darkened. She broke it. She pulled the fence up. If you don't believe me, ask them. They all saw it. Unknowingly, a few servants had gathered around to watch the show. Yuru asked them to testify. Yuya put her hands on her hips and said, All right, tell me. Who broke it? Everyone lowered their heads. Yuru's backer was Gu Jinyu. It was not worth offending her for a little medicine boy. It was not that Gu Yan was not scary, but Yu Ya's attitude was not instructed by Gu Yan, who did not know that the young master hated these cats and dogs. Yuru sneered, See? She's the one who broke it. Gu Jiao, who was pointed at by Yuru, did not care about the noise around her. She removed the thorns on the puppy's body and wrapped it in a clean handkerchief. The handkerchief was soon dyed red by the puppy's blood. Woo-woo! The puppy was in so much pain that it teared up. The second boss and senior servant Fong arrived at the same time. Senior servant Fong still remembered Gu Jiao climbing into the bed. She did not have a good impression of Gu Jiao, especially when she saw the bloody puppy in her hands. She became even more impatient. Why aren't you throwing it out? These words were not only directed at Gu Jiao, but also at the second boss. The second boss knew that Gu Jiao would not throw it out. Give it to me. I'll put it in the carriage. The second boss reached out to take the puppy. However, Gu Jiao did not give it to him. The second boss facepalmed. The little girl was amenable to coaxing, but not coercion. Couldn't she talk nicely? Did she have to be fierce to her? He was done for. Senior Servant Fong said coldly, "I'll say it again. Throw this little beast out. Otherwise, she will also get out." "Who are you telling to get out?" Accompanied by an indifferent voice, Gu Yan's sedan was carried over by the servants. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that you can't find online are all available here. https://www.zhhbqg.com/89642_896422826/115817904. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhhbqg.com Biku Pavilion's mobile reading website. zhhbqg.com. Chapter 82. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. Young Master, Nanny Fong and everyone hurriedly bowed to Gu Yan. The second master also cupped his hands and bowed. The social hierarchy in Zhao country was strict. As a businessman, the second master naturally had to bow when he saw the Marquis's son. Gu Jiao was no exception, but she didn't have the habit of bowing to others. She stared fixedly at Gu Yan. When everyone knelt down, she stood out like a crane among chickens, making it impossible for people not to notice her. The second master subtly pulled on her sleeve and motioned for her to bow. Although they were here to treat the young master, they couldn't be rude to him, right? Gu Yan acted as if he didn't see it. He didn't greet Gu Jiao, nor did he force Gu Jiao to bow. He looked at Nanny Fong. "Do you want me to ask again?" Nanny Fong was so shocked that she forgot to answer. Now that she came back to her senses, she told Gu Yan about Gu Jiao holding the puppy and refusing to throw it out. As for Gu Jiao ruining the peony flowers, she didn't mention it. After all, she didn't see it with her own eyes, so it wasn't her place to say it. Everyone in the residence knew that Gu Yan hated these little things the most. He thought they were noisy. Not long ago, Gu Yan had a rabbit that didn't bark, but it was forcefully thrown out by Gu Jinyu. This girl really hit the knife's edge. She probably didn't even know how she died. Sure enough, when Gu Yan's gaze fell on the bloody puppy in Gu Jiao's arms, his aura suddenly turned cold. Nanny Fong snorted coldly. "I told you to throw it out, but you didn't. Did it fall into the young master's hands? Where did the dog come from?" Gu Yan asked. "I picked it up," Gu Jiao said. "It was stuck in the fence and stabbed by thorns." Gu Yan glanced at the fence. The fence that Gu Jiao had picked up had been put back in place, but traces of movement could still be seen on the refurbished soil. Yuru glanced at the broken peony flower. Her mind moved and she said, "She also broke young Miss Peony Flower. Just for this dog." Yuya spat. "You're the one who broke it." "It's her." Yuru coldly pointed at Gu Jiao. "It's you." Yuya placed her hands on her hips. Gu Yan's face became extremely cold. Anyone could see that he was angry. He had a heart disease, so he couldn't get angry easily. Otherwise he would get sick. Otherwise, Master and Marchioness wouldn't spoil him so much. They even gave him such an expensive antique painting, even though they knew that he was tearing it to vent his anger. "Both of you shut up," Nanny Fong sternly shouted. The two maidservants instantly fell silent. Gu Yan glanced at everyone present, and then looked at Gu Jiao, who was among the flowers. "You all saw that she did it, right?" This was the tone of a punitive expedition, so everyone lowered their heads in tacit agreement. "No, it's not her." Yuya was a little frightened by Gu Yan's aura, so her voice also weakened. Gu Yan lightly said, "They all said that she did it. You're the only one who said that it wasn't her." "It's not her," Yuya muttered in a low voice. Yuru proudly hooked up the corners of her mouth. No matter what, the young miss was the young master's older sister. How could the young master not believe her personal maidservant, and believe a wild girl from outside? As for this Yuya, she was only a third-rank maidservant in the young master's courtyard. She didn't even have the qualifications to serve the young master. Her words naturally didn't have much weight. Very good. Guyan nodded. What's your name? Yuya was stunned. Mimi? Yuya. Guyan said. Other than Doya, drive everyone out of the mountain villa for this young master. It's Yuya. No, drive them out of the mountain villa? It wasn't her. Yuya was stunned. Everyone's expression changed at the same time. Why didn't the young master punish Yuya and the little medicine boy, but drive them out instead? The only one who had a normal expression was Gu Jiao. From beginning to end, there wasn't the slightest change in her expression. She only focused on comforting the injured little puppy. Yuru pounced over in disbelief. Young master, you're my ass. Two hidden guards quickly appeared and pressed down on her with one finger. They threw her and all the servants who tried to slander Gu Jiao out. The guards who were about to step forward to carry out the order were a little dumbfounded. Where did these two guys come from? Are they trying to steal our jobs in broad daylight? The hidden guards in black thought. Heh, you guys don't know anything about our little sweetheart. How could we give you guys such a good opportunity to curry favor with him? In the end, only senior servant Fong was left. She was Madame Yao's concubine, so the mountain villa's guards definitely wouldn't dare to touch her. However, the hidden guards didn't say anything and dragged her out. Senior servant Fong shouted, "Let me go. I want to see the madam. I want to see the madam." Whoosh! A hidden guard hit her mute acupoint, and she instantly couldn't make a sound. The guards all gave them a thumbs up. You guys even dared to touch senior servant Fong. You guys are awesome. After the hidden guards in black finished doing this, they immediately disappeared into the darkness. When the young master needed them, they were hidden weapons. When the young master didn't need them, they were air. The second master's mouth was wide open and couldn't close for a long time. Guyan had someone put down the palanquin. He walked down to Gu Jiao and gently smiled. How was it? Did it relieve your anger? The second master thought. Wait, what's going on? You threw so many people out just to relieve the little lass's anger? Gu Jiao seriously thought about it and nodded. It relieved my anger. Gu Yan's smile became even wider. He was born handsome, so when he smiled, even the spring scenery in the garden was overshadowed. It lost a lot of blood. Is it seriously injured? Gu Yan looked at the little puppy in her arms and asked. Yes, I need to find a place to stop the bleeding. You can come to my courtyard. Gu Yan brought Gu Jiao back to his room. Doya, bring a clean mattress over. It's Yuya. Yuya put her hands on her hips and roared in her heart. Yuya took the small mattress to Gu Yan's room with a dark face and spread it on Gu Yan's desk. Gu Jiao cleaned the little puppy's wounds with iodophor and applied some self-made ointment. She also wrapped some gauze around some places. Do you have goat's milk? She asked. Yes, Doya. Gu Yan asked Yuya to bring a bowl of fresh goat's milk. The little puppy licked its lips and drank it. After drinking it, it fell asleep. During the whole process, Gu Yan didn't disturb Gu Jiao. He sat cross-legged on the bed and focused on playing with Gu Jiao's stethoscope. He hung the stethoscope on his ear and lowered his head. He listened to his heart and his stomach. Wow, it's so loud. The world-weary and disagreeable young Master Gu had finally become a curious baby. The old doctor routinely checked Gu Yan's pulse. Gu Yan was very cooperative with the old doctor. His attitude was so good that the old doctor was flattered. Gu Yan's pulse also surprised the old doctor. Of course, there was still a lot of difference compared to a normal person. But compared to his past, it was a great improvement. Digression, it will be published tomorrow. The update will be at noon. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel will be updated even faster. Millions of novels will be read for free. Novels with connotations that can't be found on the internet can be found here. https://www.zhhbqg.com/89642_896422826/1157852229 HTML Genius memorized the website address in 1 second. www.zhhbqg.com Bikago mobile reading website. zhhbqg.com. Chapter 83. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels can be read for free. Novels with connotations that can't be found online can be found here. The old doctor couldn't help but admire Gu Jiao's medical skills again. There was no cure for heartache. This kind of illness was truly incurable in this day and age. It was already a miracle that it was able to get better. The young master's pulse is good. Continue to take the medicine. He didn't know that Gu Jiao had given the medicine to Gu Yan a few days ago. He continued to act. This old man refined for a long time, and finally finished refining the medicine last night. Last Gu, did you bring the medicine? Remember to give it to young Master Gu later. Gu Jiao. I already gave it to him more than 10 days ago. She was suddenly exposed. Gu Yan rolled over on the bed laughing. The matter in the small garden finally reached the head steward's ears. In the past few days, the Marchioness had caught a cold. She was afraid that the illness would spread to Gu Yan. With Gu Yan's health, even a small cold could take his life. So she moved to the orchid courtyard at the back alone. Marquis Gu made all the decisions in the manor. Thus, the head steward reported it to Marquis Gu. He didn't add any details and only described the matter from beginning to end, including how Gu Jiao pulled the fence to save the puppy, the dispute between Yuru and Gu Jiao, as well as how she accidentally damaged Gu Yan's peony, and how Nanny Fong angered Gu Yan. The head steward sighed. Yuru is from the capital, and has always looked down on the servants in the manor. This time she learned her lesson. It's just a pity for Nanny Fong. Marquis Gu coldly snorted. What's there to pity? She chased everyone out. I think she's been a steward for too long and forgot that she's just a servant. Whether or not he recognized that child wasn't someone that a lowly servant could bully. The head steward was a bit confused. What's wrong with being a servant? Isn't that still a higher status than the little medicine boy? What's more, Nanny Fong is the Marchioness's concubine, and the Marquis has always thought highly of her. Why did he suddenly say such harsh words? Marquis Gu asked. Aren't they coming in the afternoon? Brought forward. Why didn't anyone report this to me? The post said it was in the afternoon. The second boss planned to come in the afternoon, but he didn't expect Gu Jiao to be so straightforward and leave in the morning. Generally, the doctors among the people would not be able to see the Marquis. At most, they would kowtow to the Marquis after the treatment to get a chance to show their faces. Therefore, the steward did not report to the Marquis in advance. Since senior servant Fong had been scolded, the head steward naturally didn't dare to shirk the responsibility. It's this servant's fault. Please forgive me, Marquis. Where is he? Marquis Gu asked. I think they went to the young master's courtyard. The young master really thought too highly of the people from Huichun Hall. Even if those servants did something wrong, there was no need to drive out senior servant Fong and Yuru, right? If the Marquise and the young miss knew about this, wouldn't they be in trouble? This Marquis will go and take a look, Marquis Gu said and stood up from the chair. Marquis, the head steward called out to him. Those people outside, how should we deal with them? Marquis Gu pondered for a moment. Leave senior servant Fong and send the rest away. Senior servant Fong was Madame Yao's escort. If he sent her away, it would be hard to explain to Madame Yao. His son could drive people out, but he couldn't not bring them back. It was hard to be a father, but it was even harder to be a husband. Moreover, other than having a somewhat annoying personality, senior servant Fong didn't have any bad intentions. She was very loyal to Madame Yao and did her job well. Should we send Miss Yuru away as well? The head steward asked. Marquis Gu coldly said. Shouldn't we send away this kind of condescending maidservant who framed others for the new year? Will you take responsibility if she leads Jinyu astray? The head steward hurriedly responded. Yes, yes, yes. This humble one will do it right away. Also, Marquis Gu ordered, tell senior servant Fong not to go to Yan Er's courtyard after she comes back. Yes. Gu Yan's temper wasn't good. Every month he would drive away a group of people, so this matter didn't cause a huge uproar in the mountain villa at first. However, when people heard that senior servant Fong and Yuru were also kicked out, they were really surprised. In the past, no matter how angry the young master was, he wouldn't touch the people around the Marchioness and the young miss. What happened this time? The person involved, Gu Jiao, didn't know anything about everyone's doubts. After she exposed herself in front of Gu Yan, she quietly went to the front courtyard to take a breather. She wanted to be alone. It was also her fault for not informing the old doctor beforehand. However, she really didn't expect the old doctor to be so naughty. He actually learned the second boss and shopkeeper Wang's method of bragging. He had just finished decocting the medicine yesterday, but she had already given it to Gu Yan 10 days ago. She had been sold until she didn't even have her underwear left. Gu Yan was looking at her in the corridor with a smile. Gu Jiao. You're still looking, you're still looking. You're still smiling. I don't want my face. Gu Jiao turned the back of her head to Gu Yan. Coincidentally, the cute little puppy woke up at this moment. It started to whimper and look around for Gu Jiao. Gu Yan picked it up. The cute little puppy was scared as soon as it got close to Gu Yan. Its little body trembled and it whimpered. Gu Yan wasn't stingy with his death stare. He didn't have any love. He hated these cute little things, especially when it was in her arms. She hasn't hugged me before. Gu Yan stared at it with jealousy, as if he was going to pinch it to death in the next second. The cute little puppy felt Gu Yan's murderous aura and barked even louder. Ow ow! Gu Yan snorted. For her sake, I'll spare you. Although he hated this little thing, since she liked it, it was fine if he didn't hate it that much. When Marquis Gu stepped into the courtyard, he saw Gu Jiao and Gu Yan squatting on the front lawn to make a doghouse. There was a pile of wood scattered on the ground. Gu Jiao was in charge of chopping, Gu Yan was in charge of building, and Gu Jiao was also in charge of nailing. The two of them had a tacit understanding. Often, after Gu Jiao finished one step, Gu Yan knew what the next step was, even though he had never built a doghouse like this before. The two of them had the same taste. The servants brought in all kinds of mattresses to cushion the doghouse. The two of them either liked all of them or disliked all of them. The two of them were like children playing seriously, enjoying each other's company very much. Were they really fraternal twins? Gu Jinyu and Gu Yan grew up together. Marquis Gu had thought of countless ways to get the siblings closer, but the two of them just couldn't play together. Actually, it wasn't just Gu Jinyu. Other people also found it difficult to get along with Gu Yan. This child was full of thorns and would prick anyone who got close to him. Marquis Gu had never seen such an obedient son. His bad temper was gone, and so was that girl. She was much quieter. If that girl was always like this, she didn't seem to be so annoying. I don't want this. It's too ugly. Gu Yan said as he held a roof that Gu Jiao had made. But I don't think it's ugly. Gu Jiao said. This was the last step. Once the roof was nailed up, it would be finished. Gu Yan looked up at the sky. I don't care. I don't want it. Okay. Gu Jiao took apart the roof that she had painstakingly made and made a new one. The second boss was also quite puzzled. The girl was easily irritable. Other than Xiao Lulang, he had never seen her so patient with anyone. Gu Yan's little thoughts couldn't be hidden from Marquis Gu. He couldn't bear to see Gu Jiao continue to stay here after the doghouse was finished. Twins were always special. Even if they were doing the same thing, looking at twins was more interesting than looking at other children. Perhaps it wasn't a bad thing to acknowledge them. But if they did, Gu Jinyu would suffer some grievances. Marquis Gu was worried that Gu Yan would bully Gu Jinyu even more. If it was any other son, Marquis Gu could still strictly stop him. But Gu Yan had a congenital illness. If anyone made him unhappy, he could just kill them on the spot. Marquis Gu's head hurt. Marquis. Huang Zhong came over. What are you doing here? Marquis Gu moved outside so that the people in the yard couldn't see him. He didn't want to disturb the two children's play. Huang Zhong said seriously, I heard that Miss is here. I'm here to protect you so that you won't be beaten by Miss again. Marquis Gu gave him a cold stare. Is it because I can't beat her? I'm giving in to her. Oh. Huang Zhong didn't believe him. Thinking of something, Marquis Gu asked, "Do you have silver needles?" "Yes." Huang Zhong took out a secret weapon box. "What do you need silver needles for?" Marquis Gu said. "I want to take a drop of her blood." Huang Zhong asked, "What do you want Miss Blood for? You don't believe that Miss is your biological daughter?" Marquis Gu said angrily, "Am I the one who doesn't believe it now? She doesn't believe it." Huang Zhong thought of Marquis Gu Yan's, "I'm your father," and his mouth twitched. "That's because there's something wrong with your way of saying it." Marquis Gu snorted. "I don't care. If she doesn't believe it, I'll take out evidence to make her believe it." Huang Zhong said again, "Then why don't you tell Miss directly?" Marquis Gu glanced at him. "Do you think she'll give it to me if I tell her?" Huang Zhong. She won't. But isn't it too much to prick Miss with needles?" "Why don't you prick her?" Marquis Gu looked coldly at Huang Zhong. You prick her." Huang Zhong broke out in cold sweat. He didn't dare. Marquis Gu really went over with silver needles. When the people in the courtyard saw him, they all stood up and bowed. Even the second boss and the old doctor who were drinking tea in the courtyard stood up. He waved his hand, indicating for everyone to do what they were supposed to do and not make a fuss. He came to the front of the siblings. The light above his head dimmed. The two looked up at him and ignored him, continuing to bury their heads in the kennel. Marquis Gu, who was ignored. Forget it. He was here to take blood. It was good that they ignored him. It would be easier for him to sneak up on them. He stood there and waited for the right time. In a moment, the two looked up at the same time and looked at him with disdain. Marquis Gu smiled. "Do you not know where to do it? Let me help you." Gu Yan said with disdain. "You're blocking the light." Marquis Gu's face darkened. He silently went behind the two. Soon he found that this position was better. He could prick anywhere. One needle was enough. Marquis Gu secretly waited for the right time. Gu Jiao was nailing the needles on the roof when she suddenly felt two gazes that could not be ignored fall on her. She turned her head in annoyance and met Marquis Gu's gaze. Marquis Gu was ready to insert the needles. He did not expect Gu Jiao to be so sharp and almost caught him in the act. He put the hand that was holding the silver needles behind his back. Gu Jiao looked at his hand that was retracted, and then looked at her own shoulder. She felt that his guilty look was very wretched. "Don't get in our way here." Gu Yan sensed Gu Jiao's repulsion towards Marquis Gu and began to chase him away. Marquis Gu was so angry that he fell backwards. Was he still their father? If he was not his biological son, he would have beaten him to death. Marquis Gu would not give up so easily. If he could not do it openly, then he would do it secretly. He coughed lightly and said, "It must have been hard on you all. Regarding my son's illness, I have many things to ask. I see that Miss Gu is tired. Why don't you go to the side room to rest? Hu Erjia and Dr. Li, follow me to the study." Hu Erjia and Dr. Li went to Marquis Gu's study. Gu Yan and Gu Jiao carried the little puppy back to the side room. Gu Yan could not keep watching over Gu Jiao. Taking advantage of the time when he went to the outhouse, Marquis Gu also found an excuse to leave the study. He secretly put some calming medicine in the tea, and found a servant girl to deliver it to Gu Jiao. Once she fell asleep, it would be easy to take her blood. His idea was not bad, but unexpectedly, Gu Jiao smelled that something was wrong. She stopped the servant girl. "Who asked you to deliver this tea?" The servant girl said. "It was Marquis Gu." Gu Jiao's eyes turned cold. He failed to reach out his perverted pig hands, so he planned to drug her? At this age he was old enough to be her father. She did not expect him to be so perverted. Gu Jiao clenched her small fists. She went to the window and lifted the curtains. She saw Marquis Gu squatting sneakily under the windowsill. Gu Jiao's murderous aura was like a knife. Marquis Gu sensed that something was wrong from her murderous aura. His heart trembled as he took a step back and said, "Well, listen to my explanation. I actually Buddha mountain no shadow feet. Boom. Bang. Bang bang bang. Bang. Thump. Gulp. I don't know how to swim." The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_896428226/115745103. HTML Genius memorized the website address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Bikuga mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 84. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. Huang Zhong found his master on a large tree about 100 steps away from the courtyard. Marquis Gu had been scooped up by Gu Jiao and hung on a large tree branch. It was like hanging a wet shirt. There wasn't a dry spot on his body, and it was dripping with water. When Huang Zhong saw him, he was shocked. Luckily, it was broad daylight. If it was night time, he might have thought that he had seen a ghost. Marquis, why did you hang yourself on a tree? Did I do it? It was that audacious girl. And why is your face swollen? It was still that girl. Every time he saw that girl, nothing good would happen. There wasn't a single part of his body that wasn't swollen. He finally realized that the girl was here to jinx him. I don't want to acknowledge her back. Gu Jiao bid farewell to Gu Yan. Gu Yan was very reluctant, but Gu Jiao promised that she would come for a follow-up examination very soon. Only then did he reluctantly let Gu Jiao go. He and Gu Jiao sat in his sedan chair together and sent Gu Jiao to the carriage. This action once again shocked the group of servants, causing their jaws to drop. One had to know that Gu Yan's sedan chair was his absolute private territory. Once, the young Gu Yan climbed in out of curiosity and was kicked down by Gu Yan. I'll let you sit in it next time, Gu Yan said to Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao nodded. Okay. After Gu Jiao left the hot spring villa, she didn't immediately return to town. Instead, she went to Principal Li's house. Principal Li was at the academy, so there was only old Madam Li and the servants at home. Old Madam Li wasn't awake much in a day. It was said that sometimes she didn't even recognize Principal Li. But she seemed to recognize Gu Jiao and gave Gu Jiao a big handful of candies with a smile. Gu Jiao checked her body. She was fine, but she was old. Her memory was deteriorating, and her body was aging. Gu Jiao left a basket of fresh goods for her. She noticed that old Madam Li was drooling at a mulberry tree outside the wall. Gu Jiao went out of the courtyard and planned to pick some mulberries for old Madam Li. But when she got closer, she realized that the mulberry tree wasn't wild on the side of the road. It was planted in the courtyard next door. Because the tree crown was so tall, it poked out of the wall of her house. Gu Jiao thought for a moment, then walked over and knocked on the door. Who is it? Accompanied by a low cough, the vermilion door was pulled open. The one who opened the door was a lady with an elegant temperament. Gu Jiao recognized her at first glance. She also recognized Gu Jiao. She used a handkerchief to cover her mouth and gently coughed. She then revealed a faint smile. Miss, it's you? Gu Jiao was stunned. She had come to pick mulberries. How did she run into the madam of the temple? Madam, you live so far away? To go from here to the temple to burn incense. It was not an exaggeration to say that it was a long journey. My surname is Gu. Yao Shi gently said. Gu. Was there a second rich and powerful Gu family in this world? The answer was no. Gu Jiao quickly guessed her identity, but she did not say that she was the Marchioness. Gu Jiao did not point it out. Yao Shi invited Gu Jiao in. She had been sunbathing in the courtyard. She had a rattan chair and a table. She pointed at the wooden stool and said, Sit. Gu Jiao sat down. She found that there was not a single servant in the courtyard. Yao Shi saw her confusion and said with a smile, I wanted to be alone for a while, so I had them go to the front yard. This is the backyard. Does Miss also live nearby? Gu Jiao said. I was passing by and saw that the mulberries were delicious, so I wanted to come in and ask. Did I disturb Madame Gu? There's no such thing. Yao Shi was very happy to see Gu Jiao. She did not know why. I'll have someone pick them for you. Yao Shi called over a servant to pick mulberries for Gu Jiao. She pulled Gu Jiao into the courtyard and said, I still do not know Miss' name. Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao said. Yao Shi smiled in surprise. Your surname is also Gu? 500 years ago we were family. Gu Yan had also said this before. It was no wonder they were mother and son. Yao Shi's situation was not very good. After saying a few words, she began to cough violently. Gu Jiao looked at her pale face and paused. She then said, Madam Gu, if you don't mind, can I take your pulse? Miss Gu is proficient in the art of medicine? I know a bit. Yao Shi smiled and reached out to place her hand on the table. The servant finished picking a basket full of mulberries and came over to ask Yao Shi to take a look. Yao Shi waved her hand to indicate for her to leave. The servant gently placed the mulberries on the table and left. Her pulse was not very good, but her actual situation was worse than it appeared. Gu Jiao calmly pulled back her hand and asked Yao Shi, Madam Gu, how is your sleep? Yao Shi replied, Not very good. It's hard for me to fall asleep. Gu Jiao asked, Appetite? Yao Shi slightly shook her head. I don't have much of an appetite. Gu Jiao paused. Was it like this before you caught a cold? Yao Shi. Gu Jiao, how long has it been? Yao Shi. I don't remember the exact time. In short, it's been a long time. Gu Jiao asked a few more questions. In truth, the imperial physicians had also asked her. But Yao Shi did not want to open her heart. Every time, she would answer half-heartedly. Yao Shi trusted Gu Jiao a lot and answered all of her questions truthfully. Gu Jiao then said, Madam Gu, you've seen a physician before, right? What did they say? Yao Shi bitterly smiled. They said that I was overly worried and told me to relax and not think too much. They also prescribed medicine, but it didn't have much effect, so I stopped eating it after that. That was it. The physician had said that she was overly worried. In her previous life, it would be called depression. But at the same time, she also had hysteria. Once it flared up, it would be very dangerous. Gu Jiao took out 2 boxes of antidepressants from her medicine box and replaced them with a porcelain bottle. Yao Shi sat across from Gu Jiao. She only saw the lid of the medicine box and did not see what Gu Jiao had done. Gu Jiao handed the porcelain bottle to Yao Shi and told her how to use it. She then reminded her, Madam Gu, you must take this medicine. Only then will you get better. If the imperial physician's medicine had no effect, how could the medicine handed over by a young girl have any effect? But the young girl had worked for a long time, so Yao Shi could not bear to refuse her good intentions. She took the medicine and smiled. All right. Gu Jiao seriously looked into her eyes. You cannot throw away the medicine. You must promise me that you will take the medicine on time. Yao Shi had not seen such sincere eyes in a long time. The people that wanted to cure her were not curing her. They were curing the madam of the Marquis Manor. If she was not the Marquis wife, no one would even look at her. But the young girl in front of her was someone that truly wanted to cure her. Yao Shi wanted to pay Gu Jiao for her treatment. Gu Jiao shook the mulberries in her basket. Yao Shi smiled. However, Gu Jiao had indeed asked Yao Shi for some extra money for her treatment, but it was not money. Instead, it was pastries that she had personally made. Yao Shi was very happy. She had not been this happy in a long time. Every time she saw her, she was always lucky. If she was not being saved, she was being cured. This girl, was she her lucky star? Perhaps it was because they were the same age, but Yao Shi quickly thought of Gu Jinyu. Although they were mother and daughter, her relationship with Jin Yu was not as close as her relationship with Gu Yan. Even if Gu Yan had a sour face all day, she could still feel Gu Yan's need for her. She stayed in the villa and let Gu Yan go to the capital. Gu Yan would not do that, but Jin Yu could easily leave. She seemed to yearn for the prosperity of the capital and the liveliness of the Marquis Manor. This did not mean that Jin Yu did not love her as a mother, but she was not the only mother in Jin Yu's world. Without her, Jin Yu could still live well. She thought that this might be a good thing. After all, if one day Gu Yan was no longer around, she did not want to live. At least she did not have to worry about Jin Yu. On the way back, Gu Jiao asked the second master about the Marquis Manor. What are you referring to? The second master asked. The Marquis's wife. Gu Jiao said. Asking about the Marquis's wife was not strange. After all, they had already met 3 of the masters of the hot spring villa. There was only the Marquis that they had never met before. The second master did not feel that Gu Jiao had any motives. He thought for a bit then said, "That Marquis's surname seems to be Yao. Speaking of which, there is a story. She is Marquis Ding'an's second wife. Her family declined, and her father had an idle position in the Ministry of Revenue. It is said that he offended someone, and in the end, he could not even keep his idle position. She and the previous Marquis's wife were close friends. Before the previous Marquis's wife passed away, she went to visit her a few times. There were rumors in the capital that she took advantage of the previous Marquis's illness to hook up with Marquis Ding, and Gu Jiao frowned slightly. She did not seem like this kind of person. The second master continued. The truth is that she never even met Marquis Ding'an in the Marquis manor. How do you know? Gu Jiao asked. The second master faintly smiled. Our Huichun Hall has some reputation in the capital. The imperial physician that treated the previous Marquis's wife had some dealings with my family. However, the previous Marquis's wife had indeed asked Yao Shi to take care of her children. Gu Jiao asked. The previous Marquis's wife had children? The second master said. That's right. She had 3 sons. The last 2 were twins. The previous Marquis's wife had the idea of letting Yao Shi be Marquis Ding'an's second wife. Unfortunately, Yao Shi did not agree. Yao Shi personally refused. The imperial physician was brewing medicine in the back and heard everything. But after going around in circles, Marquis Ding'an finally met Yao Shi and took a liking to her. Marquis Ding'an directly proposed marriage to the Yao family, and the Yao family agreed without another word. You should be able to guess what happened after that. All sorts of rumors began to slander Yao Shi in the capital. The Marquis's wife has been staying at the hot spring villa for the past few years. First, it was to accompany Gu Yan in his recovery. Second, it was because she was not at ease in the capital. Marquis Ding'an did not have much affection for his first wife. On the contrary, he doted on Yao Shi. With Yao Shi's background, she was not qualified to be his second wife. It was he who insisted on marrying Yao Shi. But the more he doted on Yao Shi, the more people felt that Yao Shi was a fox. In reality, the second master had seen Yao Shi once. She was a woman without any schemes. Her eyes were as clean as the bottom of a lake. If she was a fox, then there was no one else in the world who was not. 10 days after the end of the capital examination, the government released the results. The examinees all headed to the government office early in the morning to see if they had passed the examination. The number of people admitted to the capital examination was very limited. Out of the hundreds of examinees, only 50 were admitted. They were divided into 2 grades, A and B. There were 10 people in a grade and the rest were in B grade. Feng Lin was woken up by Du Ruohan. Du Ruohan had slipped out of the governor's manor before the sun rose. Feng Lin, quickly get up. You lost money. Du Ruohan made a one-sided bet with Feng Lin. He bet that Xiao Lulang would not pass the examination. The bet was 10 taels of silver. Feng Lin yawned as he opened the door. I haven't eaten breakfast yet. Du Ruohan immediately stuffed a big meat bun into his mouth and pulled him downstairs. Feng Lin took the bun. Lulang also hasn't eaten yet, Du Ruohan said. All right. He has hands and feet. Don't tell me he will starve to death. Du Ruohan pulled Feng Lin to the entrance of the government office without any explanation. There were already many examinees standing there, surrounding the notice board so tightly that not even a drop of water could trickle through. Du Ruohan used a Herculean effort to pull Feng Lin to the innermost part. In Du Ruohan's view, the chances of a fool like Xiao Lulang passing the examination were really not high. Wait for the money, Feng Xiaodun. I'm not Feng Xiaodun. I also didn't. Halfway through his words, Feng Lin's gaze landed on the eye-catching name that no one could ignore. He suddenly choked and pointed at the list. You look. Du Ruohan looked in the direction of his finger. In a rather eye-catching position, he saw a name. Capital Examination Head, Xiao Lulang. Du Ruohan's jaw almost dropped. It can't be? That fellow actually passed? And he's even the examination head? How is that possible? What happened to the promised little fool? The fellow who couldn't even finish memorizing the three-character classic actually became the capital examination head? The capital examination head was much more difficult than the county examination head. It wasn't even on the same level. Furthermore, the examination question this time was set by his perverted uncle. That made it even more difficult for others to even begin with. Fong Lin stretched out his hand. Duruahan. What? Fong Lin. A bet is a bet. No, didn't you say you didn't want to bet with me? You've been led astray by that fellow. Fong Lin took all of Du Ruahan's belongings and happily returned to the inn. He gave half of the money to Xiao Lulang. There was no need for him to announce the results. The person who came to announce the good news had already gone to the inn to congratulate him. Digression. There's another chapter. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels can be read for free. Novels that can't be found online can be found here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_896428226/115744829. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Bikugo mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 85. The latest chapter of the book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are read for free. Novels with a deeper meaning that could not be found online are available here. When the owner of the inn found out that there was a top examinee in the capital examination, he immediately refunded Xiao Lulang and the other two. He even provided them with the most expensive food and wine. If the inn did not have it, he could even order the waiter to buy it. Although Fong Lin had already passed the county-level examination, his results were not considered top-notch. Naturally, he did not receive such treatment. Following Xiao Lulang this time around, he could be considered to be in the limelight. It was worth mentioning that Xiao Lulang did so well that his essay was circulated on the day the results were released. Naturally, many people came to befriend Xiao Lulang, but they were all rejected by Xiao Lulang. The imperial examination system of the current dynasty was greatly adjusted compared to the previous dynasty. After the capital examination in the previous dynasty, there was a 2 to 3 month wait for the college examination. However, the college examination in the current dynasty was closely scheduled on the second day of the release of the results. During these 10 days of waiting for the results, most of the examinees spent their time in fear. After much difficulty, they were certain that they had passed the examination, but they did not even have a chance to breathe before they had to enter the next round of examination. This undoubtedly increased the pressure on the examinees. There were 2 rounds in the college examination, the 8-part essay and the essay. The essay was as difficult as the capital examination. The 8-part essay was still set by Provincial Governor Zhuang. Xiao Lulang had already obtained 2 top examinees. If he obtained the top examinee for the lower house examination, he would be a Junior 3 examinee. There had not been a Junior 3 examinee in Pingcheng for almost 10 years. All the officials in the magistrate court had high hopes for Xiao Lulang. However, to everyone's surprise, Xiao Lulang actually handed in a blank paper. The college examination and the capital examination were not very different in scope. They still required the examinee to pass the 3 examinees. However, there were more questions and the types of questions were more tricky. However, it was not to the extent of handing in a blank paper. Of course, in every round of examination, the examinees could not be excluded from various unexpected situations. There was once when a student smeared something dirty on the paper, causing the entire paper to be invalid. That was the triennial provincial examination. 3 years of hard work by the examinee had gone down the drain. However, handing in a blank script was still too rare, especially when this blank paper was given to Xiao Lulang, who had left a deep impression on Governor Zhuang during the county examination. If Governor Zhuang remembered correctly, there were a total of 12 examiners marking the papers. 11 of them gave Xiao Liulang's 8-part essay an A grade. The only one who wasn't given an A grade was Provincial Governor Zhuang. He gave Xiao Lulang B. But if one knew that Provincial Governor Zhuang only gave ding grades to others, one would be able to see how rare and valuable Xiao Liulang's results were. There were 11 A's. Even if he had written something randomly, he could still be ranked in the top 10. However, Xiao Lulang was ranked 3rd from the bottom. This surprised Governor Zhuang. He pulled out the test paper and found that it was a blank test paper. Governor Zhuang also asked someone to take out Xiao Liulang's test paper for the prefectural examination. If 6th young Master Zhao's script for the prefectural examination had been terrible, this matter might have passed. However, 6th young Master Zhao's script for the prefectural examination had been a complete set. In other words, he didn't answer a single question correctly. And he only used an hour, said the invigilator, who came to deliver the test paper. This invigilator was the one who sat across from Xiao Lulang during the county examination. The test paper was masked. After it was handed in, no one knew who the test paper belonged to. However, after Xiao Lulang took the prefectural examination, his 8-legged essay had spread. The invigilator had secretly gone to the inn to see what this prefectural examination had looked like, and how he was able to write such a wondrous essay. In the end, he discovered that the other party was the examinee, who had only taken an hour to write the essay. Provincial Governor Zhuang's standards were too high. To be able to answer all the questions correctly was not enough to reach the apex. However, if it was only an hour, then it was very amazing. Out of all the people he knew, the only one who could do better than this examinee was the late young Marquis of Zhao. Provincial Governor Zhuang immediately sent someone to the inn to find Xiao Lulang and ask him about the situation. I didn't hand in a blank test paper, Xiao Lulang said. If what Xiao Lulang said was true, then someone must have touched his test paper. This was a big matter. The management of the test papers in the imperial examination was very strict. When every examinee handed in their test paper, there would be 2 invigilators who would collect the test paper together. They would also put down their fingerprints when they masked the test paper, proving that they were the ones who took the test paper. If there was a problem with the test paper, only the 2 of them would be responsible. It was worth mentioning that all the invigilators were matched by drawing lots after they entered. They were the same as the examinees and could not contact the outside world until the end of the examination. It was easy to bribe one of the invigilators, but to bribe 2 at the same time was too difficult. This was because no one could guarantee that the 2 invigilators would coincidentally be assigned to the same test paper, much less guarantee that they would coincidentally be assigned to the same test paper as Xiao Lulang. Even so, Governor Luo still called the invigilators over for questioning. The 2 of them both said that they did not violate any rules. Is it a blank test paper? I'm not sure. Before handing in the test paper, the examinees would stamp a blank paper on it. This is to prevent us from prying into their handwriting. Provincial Governor Zhuang nodded and turned to Governor Luo. After passing through the hands of the 2 of them, the test paper would be masked, right? Only after all the invigilators have finished marking will they open the name. Then I'm very curious. How did that person recognize Xiao Liulang's test paper and successfully switch it to a blank test paper? Governor Luo thought for a moment and said, there are 2 ways. One is to hand out the test paper, and the other is to mark the test paper. Xiao Lulang is the head of the prefectural examination. During the academy examination, he sits first. This is the rule. The first test paper to be handed out is his test paper. Then, they can tamper with the test paper beforehand. Even if the test paper is masked, they can still recognize his test paper. Or perhaps, an invigilator obtained Xiao Liulang's test paper from the prefectural examination and took down Xiao Liulang's notes. When they were marking the test paper, they could recognize Xiao Liulang's test paper based on the notes. No matter which one it is, There must be someone among the examiners marking the test paper who is not clean. The examiners for the prefectural examination and the academy examination were not from the same batch. This was to prevent someone from remembering the examinee's handwriting and thus affecting their judgment of the examinees. However, this did not rule out the possibility that someone had secretly obtained the prefectural examination's test paper. After all, after marking the test paper, the secrecy of the test paper would be greatly reduced. Other than Provincial Governor Zhuang, the other 11 examiners were all escorted into a secret room to be interrogated by Governor Luo. Under the heavy punishment, Governor Luo was able to find the real culprit. The culprit was an examiner with the surname of Wu. He had worked in the examination hall for 20 years and was usually as honest as an antique. Governor Luo originally thought that he was the least likely culprit. It seemed that not betraying wasn't because one's morals were high, but because one's bargaining chip wasn't high enough. That person gave me 1,000 taels of silver to destroy Xiao Liulong's test paper. I originally prepared ink and planned to disguise the situation as if Xiao Liulang had accidentally dirted the test paper. I have seen many situations like this, and they all treated the test paper as trash. No one would go and verify it. However, before I could make a move, Lord Wang, who I had sent away, returned. My hand trembled, and I spilled the ink on myself. It was too late to find another ink. Coincidentally, I had a few blank test papers with me, so I took one and replaced it. What did that person look like? He was masked, so I didn't see clearly. Voice. How tall? I don't remember. I really don't remember. Governor Luo reported the results of the interrogation to Provincial Governor Zhuang. Generally speaking, if there was cheating in the imperial examinations, everyone's test paper would be invalidated, and they would have to take the test again. Not only would this hurt the government, it would also cause many examinees to break down. Examinations had always been a combination of ability and luck. No one could guarantee that they would perform better in the next round, and there was no guarantee that other examinees wouldn't take advantage of the situation to surpass them. Of course, to the examinees who failed the role, this was undoubtedly a free opportunity. However, the problem was that even if Xiao Liulong's test paper was replaced with a blank one, he still passed with 11 A's and 1 B's. In other words, those who should have been accepted were all accepted. Those who failed were supposed to fail. The only difference was that their rankings might have advanced by 1 place, while Xiao Liulang had lost his position as the head of the table. Governor Luo sighed. That person probably didn't expect that Xiao Liulang would still be able to pass the examination. It's a pity. Xiao Liulang should have had the chance to become the head of the table. Provincial Governor Zhuang said seriously. This matter can be big or small. If you look at it from a long-term perspective, it is a small matter. If you stop here in your life, then it will be a big matter. Minor 3 yuan was enough for an elementary scholar to be in the limelight for a while, but only for a while. If he really wanted to make a name for himself, he had to continue taking the provincial examination. After becoming a high scholar in the provincial examination, he would then enter the capital for the imperial examinations. The college examination wasn't the end of everything. On the contrary, it was the starting point of the imperial examinations. Provincial Governor Zhuang said, "This matter is up to him to decide. Go and ask him if he wants to take the exam again." If he wanted to take the exam again, he wouldn't be the only one taking the exam. Instead, all the examinees would have to go through both the 8-legged essay and sutra examination again. Governor Luo went to the inn. When he saw Xiao Liulang, he tactfully explained his purpose for coming and asked Xiao Liulang if he wanted to take the exam again. Xiao Liulang didn't directly answer his question. Instead, he opened the window and let him see the students on the first floor who were exchanging their results with each other. The rankings had already been released. Those who didn't pass were covered in dirt, while those who passed were glowing. At this moment, no one knew what he was experiencing in his heart. "These examinees who passed are all innocent, right?" he suddenly said. Governor Luo was stunned when he heard this. After a while he said hoarsely, "Yes, you didn't fail the examination. Therefore, It doesn't matter if any of them took up an extra spot in the provincial examination. Xiao Luleng looked at the examinees and said, "If they take the exam again, there will be some of them who won't pass, right?" Governor Luo sighed and nodded. This was inevitable. After taking the exam again, one's mentality would collapse and it would be difficult to perform normally. "Then what about you, Governor Luo?" Xiao Luleng asked. What?" Governor Luo was stunned. Xiao Luleng said, "I heard that Governor Luo's term of office is coming to an end. The re-examination is a big matter and needs to be reported to the court. Will it affect Governor Luo's re-election?" Governor Luo helplessly nodded. The court's control over the imperial examination was extremely strict. If he were to take the exam again because of fraud, his official position would be over. Xiao Luleng calmly asked, "How much does Governor Luo think your future is worth?" Governor Luo was stunned. This. Was this brat openly extorting him? Xiao Luleng calmly said, "Governor Luo is an honest official and can't take out too much money. However, that person should have spent a lot of money to bribe the examiner, right? The victim is me. Shouldn't Governor Luo compensate me with this money? He could buy back his own future without spending a single copper coin. He could also gain a good reputation as an honest official. This transaction was worth it." Governor Luo fell head first into the pit that Xiao Luleng had dug. Of course. I will definitely send 1,000 taels to candidate Xiao." Xiao Luleng continued. "Also, if no one tampered with the exam papers, I would be a grade 3 examiner. Governor Luo, you don't deny this, right?" Governor Luo nodded vigorously. Of course. Both the provincial governor and I have witnessed examinee Zhao's strength." Xiao Luleng sighed faintly. "But there's a reward for grade 3 examiners. I won't be able to get this reward now." Governor Luo was speechless. Why did it feel like this pit was a little big? The reward for grade 3 examiners was allocated by the court and distributed by the yamen. The yamen, the tribute court, and the county yamen would give a total of 100 taels. As Peace City Prefecture had not given out grade 3 examiners for the past 10 years, the reward had been doubled. In other words, Xiao Luleng should have received 200 taels. However, with the current situation, he could not use the public account. In other words, Governor Luo had to fork out the money himself. Governor Luo thought, "I actually naively thought that I wouldn't have to spend a single coin. I'm so stupid, really." The cheating incident ended with Governor Luo coughing up blood and forking out from his own pocket. Provincial Governor Zhuang was a distant relative of Governor Luo. Since the person involved did not pursue the matter, he did not report it to the court. Governor Luo's official position was saved, and the examinees did not have to break down anymore. Everyone was happy. As for the person who cheated, it should be an examinee who was jealous of Xiao Liulong's results and wanted to pull him down. Governor Luo said that he would continue to investigate in secret. When Xiao Luleng returned to the village, it was already the beginning of April. The village was filled with the warmth of late spring. The willow branches by the pond had sprouted, and strands of them drooped down on the surface of the water, like a floating jade curtain. The crops in the fields had also grown, and they were green as far as the eye could see. He had come to the village around this time last year. Who would have thought that a year had passed in the blink of an eye? Uncle Zhang, who had just returned from the fields, turned his head and said to Auntie Zhang behind him, "Wife, look, isn't that Luleng?" Auntie Zhang's eyesight was better than her husband's. She looked over and nodded her head vigorously. "Isn't that Luleng? Hey, the scholar is back." She also turned her head and shouted at the villagers who were working in the fields. Xiao Liulong's results had already spread to the village. Even though he had failed in the college examination, he had obtained first place in the county and prefectural examinations. He was also evaluated as a scholar. He was the second scholar in the village after Gu Das-hun. Early in the morning, the people from the county yamen had sent over a few dozen caddies of grain. The white rice looked even better than Gu Dashuan's. The villagers acted as if it was the first time they had met Xiao Luleng. They wanted to talk to him, but did not dare to. After all, things were different now. He was a scholar. Uncle Zhang, Auntie Zhang. Xiao Luleng greeted the two of them. This family was warm-hearted. When Gu Jiao had menstrual cramps, It was Auntie Zhang who lent Xiao Lulang brown sugar. The two of them were so flattered that they could not continue the conversation. After that, Xiao Lulang met a few more villagers one after another. He greeted them, neither too warm nor too cold. It was no different from his usual cold appearance. Finally, he arrived at the door of his house. Because he did not inform his family in advance, his family did not know that he was coming back today. The sound of little Jing Kong's babbling could be heard from the backyard. Xiao Lulang stepped into the house. In the backyard that was filled with sunlight, Gu Jiao was washing little Jing Kong's hair. Little Jing Kong's round bald head had green hair stubs. He proudly asked Gu Jiao how long his hair was, and whether it was longer than a few days ago. The old lady was sitting on a rattan chair, watching the little handsome monk come out of the bath while eating melon seeds. Xue Ningxiang's 1-year-old son Go Dan was sitting on a small stool beside her. Go Dan was slowly eating corn on the cob. Little Jing Kong was the first to notice Xiao Lulang. Little Jing Kong lowered his head and looked behind his crotch. He saw Xiao Lulang lying on the floor. He recognized him for a long time. Bad brother-in-law? Gu Jiao stopped scooping water and turned her head quietly. She looked at him and he looked at her in the same way. They hadn't seen each other for more than a month. Everyone in the family had changed. Little Jing Kong's hair stubs had grown, and the old lady was getting younger. She seemed to have grown taller and looked more like a young girl. Her birthmark was still on her face, but it didn't look like an ugly red spot. Instead, it looked like an enchanting flower. It bloomed with a bright and moving color in her cold and lonely temperament. She was as beautiful as a peach. He had also grown taller, and the youthful air between his brows had faded a little, and there was a hint of nobility and elegance of a scholar. The two of them looked at each other in a daze. Neither of them spoke. Lulang, you're back? The old lady turned around and said in a light tone, Did you bring any delicious food? Xiao Lulang came back to his senses. Yes. He walked forward, but he didn't look at the door sill. He staggered and almost fell. Gu Jiao calmly turned around and continued to bathe little Jing Kong. However, as soon as she dipped the ladle into the water, she heard little Jing Kong cry out, Aya! It's so cold. Gu Jiao was embarrassed. She scooped the wrong water. Digression. Today's total is 12,000 words. It's the usual 6 chapters, so it's considered a small explosion. I wish everyone a happy meal. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found on the internet can be found here. https://www.zhhbqg.com/89642_8964286/115743352. HTML Genius memorized the website's address in 1 second. www.zhhbqg.com Bikugo mobile reading website. zhhbqg.com. Chapter 86. Please scan the QR code below to download the app for more exciting content. The novel will be updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels will be read for free. There are all kinds of novels that can't be found online. The old lady looked at Gu Jiao and then at Xiao Lulang. Her eyes were full of mystery. She felt that she was going to have a great-grandchild soon. Gu Jiao changed the topic seamlessly and asked Feng Lin. Xiao Lulang answered seriously. He went back to the academy. He went to the prefectural city for a month and missed a lot of classes. It was all thanks to Feng Lin this time. Gu Jiao would remember his kindness. While the two of them were talking, a few yellow chicks swaggered out. Xiao Lulang realized that he had started to raise chickens after leaving home for a month. Gu Jiao was not interested in raising chickens. Little Jing Kong liked the chicks from next door when he saw them. He asked Gu Jiao if he could raise a few. Gu Jiao said that he could raise them, but there was a condition. He had to take care of the chicks himself. He could not ask others to do the feeding and cleaning of the chicken feces. In order to let little Jing Kong understand the difficulty of raising chickens, Gu Jiao asked him to go to Xue Ningxiang's house to feed the chickens for 2 days. Not only were there cute chicks, but there were also mature hens and roosters. Gu Jiao also told him that all the chicks that looked cute now would grow into hens and roosters one day. In the end, even this could not dissuade him. Gu Jiao could only let him raise her. He raised 7 of them, and all of them were chubby. He even gave them names, from 1 to 7. She did not know how he could identify them. Xiao Lulang brought the old lady a specialty of pingcheng, candied red bayberries. At this time, the red bayberries had just borne fruit. The fruit was not big and had a strong sour taste. However, this type of bayberries was best preserved with sugar. The sweet and sour taste was not greasy. Xiao Lulang brought 2 jars. One jar had its core removed, and the other jar had its core. Although it was just 2 cans of food, this was the most famous candied red bayberry in Pingcheng. Since there were many students taking the exam, it was sold out almost every day as soon as it came out. Xiao Lulang went to line up in the middle of the night, and shivered in the cold wind for a long time. The old madam took out a seedless dried bayberry, and gave it to Gooden. Gooden was drooling. Gu Xiaoshan hadn't finished school yet. Xiao Lulang had also brought something for him. It was a complete set of wood-carving tools. The Zhao country had very strict control over iron. It was very difficult for ordinary people to buy such fine and complete ironware. Xiao Lulang had extorted money from Governor Luo to buy it. He watched as Xiao Liulang's bag deflated. Little Jing Kong walked his little chick. He didn't seem to care, but he glanced at Xiao Liulang's bag from time to time. Gu Jiao noticed his strange behavior and asked, "Jing Kong, are you also looking forward to your gift?" "I'm not." Little Jing Kong turned his head away proudly. Bad brother-in-law would not buy him a gift. Xiao Lulang saw the little guy's awkwardness. They were already on bad terms. After being separated for more than a month, they could not even be considered distant. Xiao Lulang took out a burr puzzle from the bag. "It's okay if you don't want it. I'll give it to Gooden." "No." Little Jing Kong jumped down from the chair and snatched the burr puzzle. He's small. He can't play with it." Gooden looked at his little brother blankly. He didn't understand what had happened. Finally, it was Gu Jiao's. It was a very exquisite brocade box. Just by looking at the box, one could tell that it was expensive. Gu Jiao thought to herself, and measured the length of the brocade box. Was it a hairpin? It was such an expensive box. It should be a silver hairpin at least. Silver hairpins were rare in the countryside. Most of them were wooden hairpins. The more extravagant ones were copper hairpins. Silver hairpins could only be bought by wealthy families. They would only be willing to wear them on very important days. Of course, the most important thing was that if a man gave a woman a hairpin, it would mean something unspeakable. Gu Jiao's face was full of, "I love it, I love it, I love it." Click. Xiao Lulang opened the brocade box. It was not a hairpin, but a writing brush. Gu Jiao was dumbfounded. Xiao Lulang said, "Your handwriting is not good. Other than the way you hold the brush, it has something to do with the writing brush. This is a weasel hairbrush made by a famous craftsman in Ping City. It's very suitable for your strength." He introduced her in a serious manner, but Gu Jiao was not in a good mood. Was the hairpin a hot potato? Why did he give her a writing brush? This was like giving a student who only wanted to spend money to play games a set of exam questions. How could she refuse? Seeing Gu Jiao trying to hold back her anger, old Madame Fu laughed so hard that her stomach hurt. There was a need that Lulang thought you needed. Gu Jiao hugged the weasel hairbrush, her face as black as charcoal. Then Xiao Lulang handed her a copper token with the words, "Zhouji Bank," engraved on it. "I've saved your household expenses in the bank. You can get it yourself if you need it." Xiao Lulang did not mention the exact amount, and Gu Jiao did not ask. She was still immersed in her emotions of being given a writing brush. What Gu Jiao did not know was that this weasel hair brush was more expensive than all the other gifts put together. It was not something that could be bought with money. Gu Jiao did not lose her temper for too long. She still remembered the important matter. Before leaving, Gu Jiao had told Feng Lin to keep an eye on Xiao Liulang's walking practice every day. Now she wanted to see the results. Gu Jiao and Xiao Lulang went to the west room to check on his ankle. The wound from the surgery was almost invisible. Gu Jiao reached out and pinched it. Does it still hurt? Xiao Lulang shook his head. It doesn't hurt anymore. It doesn't hurt at all? Gu Jiao raised her head and looked at him. He nodded. Yes. Gu Jiao pinched his calf again. It felt good. It seemed that Feng Lin did not slack off. The weakened muscles had basically recovered after 4 months of rehabilitation. In other words, Xiao Lulang did not have any weakness in his legs anymore. He still did not throw away his crutches. The biggest problem might be his psychological state. Gu Jiao had seen many similar cases in her previous life. Some people were afraid of getting injured again and overprotected themselves. However, most of these cases would gradually fade with the passage of time and get better. The other case was more complicated. The patient had a knot in his heart. If he could not untie it, he would continue to live in a state of injury to punish himself or to avoid something. While Gu Jiao was thinking, Xiao Lulang had already pulled down his trousers and walked out with his crutches. Gu Jiao looked at his cold and lonely back and couldn't help but be puzzled. What exactly had he experienced? The news that Xiao Lulang had passed the county-level exam quickly spread throughout the surrounding villages. As a big family in the village, the Gu family had also heard the news. They really did not expect that Xiao Lulang would be able to pass 2 exams in a row, and even pass the exam. He was clearly a bad student who almost failed to get into Tianxiang Academy. How did he pass the exam like Dashun? Also, Xiao Lulang was clearly more valuable than Gu Dashuan's rice. Otherwise, the rice given to Xiao Lulang would not be so much better than the rice given to Gu Dashun. 2 exams, just one more to become a junior 3rd scholar. At the dinner table, Gu Chenglu said enviously. Was he born unwilling to study? No. It was just that he could not study. Later on, he had 2 sons and hoped that they could study. However, the family could not afford to support those who were willing to study. The one who entered for free was Gu Shaoshun. That disappointment. The Gu family did not know that it was not that Xiao Lulang could not pass the exam, but that he had given up on it. Everyone at the table had ugly expressions. The ugliest was Gu Dashun. The Xiao Lulang that he had always looked down on had suddenly overtaken him. Gu Dashun was unhappy. With Headmaster Li personally tutoring him, of course he improved a lot. In the month before the district exam, I saw Headmaster Li call him to Zhongzhengtang every day. He did not believe that Xiao Lulang had relied on his own abilities to soar. In terms of talent, Xiao Lulang was not as good as him. If he was the one being personally tutored by Headmaster Li, then he would definitely be able to achieve better results than Xiao Lulang. To put it bluntly, he lost in terms of resources. If it was in the past, the Gu family would definitely say a few words of jealousy towards Xiao Lulang. But tonight no one said a word. This caused Gu Dashun to frown slightly. He felt that the atmosphere in the family was different from before. Everyone looked like they had a lot on their minds, except for Gu Shaoshun. It was not strange that he would think this way. After the Gu family failed in their attempt to woo the Marquis's daughter, Gu Jiao's matter was completely exposed. Marquis Gu did not even need to use any interrogation methods. He only needed to let Huang Zhong walk around the village, and he was able to get a clear picture of Gu Jiao's life since she was young. This was the legitimate bloodline of the Marquis's household. How could she be bullied like this? Wasn't this rubbing Marquis Gu's face on the ground? Marquis Gu's anger could be imagined. If not for Gu Jinyu and the 3rd branch of the Gu family, Marquis Gu would have long captured this family and beaten them to death. But they could avoid the death penalty, but they could not escape punishment. Old Master Gu had reached the end of his career. This was the most wronged Old Master Gu had ever been. He had gone to the clan for a drink, and when he came back his custody was gone. And it was his own wife, son and daughter-in-law who had caused it to be gone. As for Gu Jinyu, Marquis Gu made the Gu family give up Gu Jinyu's custody, and vowed not to appear in front of Gu Jinyu for the rest of his life. In addition, Marquis Gu's lips were sealed. Not a single word was to be leaked. So the Gu family kept it a secret even from Gu Dashun and Gu Shaoshun. Gu Ershun had unintentionally eavesdropped and knew that Gu Jiao might have been the wrong child. But he did not know anything else. This was one of the reasons for the strange atmosphere. The second reason was that the womenfolk in the family had actually come to the table to eat. Gu Dashun was not used to this. Gu Dashun glanced at his sister Gu Yua. He thought of something and said, Jianyang is so lucky to have married a scholar husband. His sister was not young anymore. Logically speaking, it was time to talk about marriage. If she married into a good family, it would be of help to him. Gu Yue lowered her head and ate without a word. Everyone thought, was Jianyang the lucky one? It was clearly that brat Xiao Lulang. Did he know who he was marrying? The Marquis family's daughter. This was really a good thing that fell from the sky. Speaking of this marriage, they had been careless. If they had known that the girl had such a background, they would not have married her off. If they kept her at home as a money tree, who knew how much benefits they could get from the Marquis family? The Gu family's intestines turned green. But what could they do? That girl was no longer stupid and easy to fool. Even if they wanted to mend their relationship, it would not be so easy. Madame Wu gave Madame Lu a look, indicating for her to pick up the meat in her bowl. This was real meat. Every slice was especially thick and fat. In the future, only Gu Dashun would be able to eat it. Madame Lu swallowed and picked up the thickest slice. She originally wanted to put it in Ershuan's bowl, but Madame Wu glared daggers at her. She quickly put it in Gu Xiaoshuan's bowl. Gu Xiaoshuan looked at his mother with a strange expression. What? Madame Lu said embarrassedly. It's not easy for you to come back. Eat some meat. During this period of time, Gu Xiaoshuan had been living in the academy. Today he was invited back by Gu Dashun. Gu Dashun did not want to invite him politely, but his father had spoken. Gu Dashun had no other choice. Gu Xiaoshuan looked at the meat in his bowl, and ate it indifferently. Gu Ershun was so hungry that he drooled. Gu Dashun frowned. Everyone else pretended not to see anything. Madame Lu smiled and said, Xiaoshuan, you haven't gone to see your sister yet, right? Gu Xiaoshuan asked, why? Madame Lu smiled and said, your sister is so good to you. Why don't you go see her now that you're back? Gu Xiaoshuan ate a mouthful of rice and said, I'll go in a while. Madame Lu continued to smile and said, your brother-in-law has become a scholar. Remember to say a few words of congratulations. Gu Xiaoshuan said, okay. After a long time, Madame Wu and the first branch did not get to the point. Gu Changhai said, Xiaoshuan, I've prepared a jar of good tea leaves and 2 old hens. I'll send them to your sister with you later. Gu Xiaoshuan said, I'll go. Why are you going? I'm afraid you can't carry them. Gu Xiaoshuan was so angry that he almost went crazy. Gu Xiaoshuan was a straightforward person. He did not understand the meaning behind his words. Gu Changhai decided to be frank and said, there's no overnight hatred in a family. We were wrong before. Today we apologize to your sister. From today onwards, we'll live a good life as a family. Marquis Gu only said that they were not allowed to get close to Gu Jinyu. He did not say that they were not allowed to get close to Gu Jiao as long as they did not reveal the truth to Gu Jiao. They could roughly guess Marquis Gu's intentions. He was afraid that Gu Jiao wouldn't be able to accept it in a short period of time, so he planned to take things slowly. They only needed to reconcile with Gu Jiao before the father and daughter reunited. You want to curry favor with my brother-in-law, because he has become a scholar, right? Gu Xiaoshuan put his chopsticks on the table and asked, where are the things? The first sentence made people frown, but the second sentence made the Gu family feel that there was hope. Gu Zhonghai quickly said to Madame Zhou, go and get them. Madame Zhou did not dare to delay. She went into the house and caught the expensive tea leaves and the 2 fattest hens in the house. Gu Xiaoshuan put down his chopsticks, took the things and walked out. Gu Zhonghai stretched out his hand and said, hey, wait for me. Wait for you. You are the ones who owe my sister. Gu Xiaoshuan sprinted out and slipped into his sister's house, slamming the door shut with a loud bang. Gu Zhonghai, who had a nosebleed from the slamming of the door. The tea leaves and hens that Gu Zhonghai had spent a lot of money on were gone just like that. He did not dare to make a fuss. How could he reason with them? Gu Zhonghai wanted to knock on the door, but no one answered. He could only grit his teeth and go back. Gu Jiao did not care about the Gu family. The old madam and Xiao Lulang did not care either. If Gu Xiaoshuan had not held the door shut, the old madam would have pinned a basin of feces and urine on the Gu family. Gu Jiao was cooking in the kitchen. Sister. Gu Xiaoshan had not returned to the village for a long time and missed his sister. He rushed to the kitchen to greet Gu Jiao, then went to look for Xiao Lulang and the old madam. Xiao Lulang gave him the carving knives that he had brought from Pingcheng. Gu Xiaoshan liked them very much. He looked at each knife again and again, and could not bear to part with them. A good knife was to a craftsman, and a good sword was to a swordsman. That kind of joy could not be replaced by ordinary gifts. Gu Xiaoshan felt that his brother-in-law was a good man. Gu Xiaoshan was playing with the knives when the old madam suddenly called him into the house. The old madam waved at him enthusiastically. Xiaoshan, come and try the candied dried red bayberries that Luling bought for me. Gu Xiaoshan blinked. Great aunt, why are you so generous today? It was usually harder to eat one of her candied fruits than to reach the sky. Here. The old madam searched for a long time and gave him the smallest one. Gu Xiaoshan did not pick it and stuffed it into his mouth. The next second, he saw the old madam count 7 big candied red bayberries and put them into her small honey pot. She shouted loudly, Jiao Jiao, Xiaoshan ate 8 of my dried red bayberries. Gu Xiaoshan almost choked to death. Did she have to do this for a few dried red bayberries? Gu Jiao controlled the old madam and allowed her to eat 3 bayberries a day at most. She could only eat 5 bayberries during the new year. She saved 7 in one go. It could be said that she had made a fortune. The old madam was very satisfied. She waved her hand and asked Gu Xiaoshan to do what he should do. Gu Xiaoshan was dumbfounded. Did she make use of him just like that? Gu Xiaoshan planned to look for little Jing Kong, but he found that the little guy had gone out. Little Jing Kong went out to walk the chicks. At first, he only walked in the backyard of his house. Gradually, he felt that the backyard was not safe enough, so he took the chicks out. Little Jing Kong's route was from his house to the entrance of the village and back. If he met the villagers, he would politely greet them. The villagers were surprised at the beginning, but now they were used to it. They even started to like the little monk. Other people's chicks ran all over the place when they went out, but his chicks could still form a formation. Little Chi, don't cut the line. Little Jing Kong caught a chick that had sneaked to the 5th line. Little Jing Kong walked to the Gu family's old house. This was the only way to the entrance of the village. He knew the relationship between the two families. He would not go to the Gu family's house, nor would he greet the Gu family. However, today he was attracted by a strange sound. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel is more complete and updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. All the novels that can't be found online are available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/896422_8964226/115719606. HTML Genius memorized the website address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Bkuj mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 87. Please scan the QR code below to download the app for more interesting content. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are available here. It sounded like a man's reading voice. It was intermittent. Every time he reached the same place, he would stop and start from the beginning. Little Jing Kong's OCD couldn't take it anymore. He walked over and saw Gu Dashun frowning under a big tree outside the Gu family's house. Little Jing Kong knew Gu Dashun, but he didn't talk to Gu Dashun before. He didn't understand why Gu Dashun didn't study at home, but came to read under a tree. The family was quarreling over the tea leaves and hens. The second branch blamed the first branch for coming up with a bad idea. The first branch blamed Gu Xiaoshan for messing things up. Gu Dashun couldn't concentrate, so he came to the tree to find some peace and quiet. He didn't expect to find some words that he didn't know. Hide. This word is red hide. Little Jing Kong stood behind him and said while looking at the words in his book. Gu Dashun was shocked by the sudden childish voice. He turned around and looked at little Jing Kong in surprise. Little Jingkong had been in the village for so long. He had heard of him and seen him from afar, but he didn't communicate with him. Little Jingkong saw him in a daze and thought that he didn't understand, so he read again, "Hide. Hide." Gu Das-hun didn't believe a 3-year-old kid. He looked away and said, "Don't talk nonsense if you don't understand." Little Jingkong put his hands on his hips and said, "I'm not talking nonsense. I've learned it before." Gu Das-hun said, "How could you have learned it before?" Little Jingkong said, "I've memorized Vajrasakyamuni mantra a long time ago." Gu Das-hun looked at him suspiciously and pointed at another word. "What about this one?" "Ah." The Buddhas of the 3 eras obtained Anyatara Samyak Sambodhi through Prajnaparamita Heart Sutra. His little mouth opened and closed, saying it all in one breath, so smoothly that there was not even a small pause. Even if Gu Das-hun did not understand Buddhist scriptures, he knew that such a difficult sentence could not have been made up by a 3.5-year-old child. So he really knew how to do it. After that, Gu Das-hun pointed out a few words to little Jingkong. There were words that he knew, and there were also words that he did not know. He did not expect that little Jingkong knew all of them, and could even accurately tell where they came from. Little Jingkong looked at Gu Das-hun bitterly. "How did you study? I heard that you are an elementary scholar. Are all elementary scholars so bad?" Little Jingkong suddenly remembered that his bad brother-in-law had also just passed the Shiotsai exam. Could he be as bad as him? How was he going to support his family? Could it support him until he grew up? Little Jingkong, who was worried about his family, suddenly lost the mood to walk the chicks. He brought little one to little Chi back home. After putting the chicks back into the coop, he immediately went to the west room. He was still not good at writing, mainly because he was not strong enough to hold a writing brush. But he had scriptures. He took out a few scriptures from his small box and went to Xiao Luleng. He casually turned to a page and pointed at a rare word on it. "How do you read this?" Xiao Luleng glanced at him and read it out calmly. Little Jingkong frowned seriously and nodded secretly. He read it correctly. Little Jingkong pointed at another word, which was the first word that Gu Das-hun did not know. Xiao Luleng read it out easily. Little Jingkong was satisfied. After that, he continued to test Xiao Luleng on many words. Xiao Luleng got every word right. He also tested Xiao Liulong's interpretation. Xiao Liulong's explanation was similar to his master's, or even more concise than his master's. It seemed that his bad brother-in-law was studying hard. Little Jingkong was finally relieved. How could Xiao Luleng know what he was thinking? He thought that he suddenly wanted to learn how to read. The children in town began their education at the age of 7. Little Jingkong was smarter than the average child, and had some foundation in the temple. Perhaps he could be sent to the elementary school earlier. Xiao Luleng secretly engraved the matter of little Jingkong's opening of the door in his mind. On the other hand, Marquis Gu's injury was basically healed. He did not say that he was kicked by his own daughter, and only said that he fell accidentally. The servants were forced to believe him. Huang Zhong received a letter from his family from the capital. After reading the letter, Marquis Gu's brows furrowed tightly. Huang Zhong asked, "What's wrong, Marquis? Did something happen in the Marquis's household?" Marquis Gu sighed. "The Marquis's household is fine. It's a letter from Consort Shu." Huang Zhong was puzzled. "Consort Shu? Did she summon you for something?" Marquis Gu helplessly folded the letter and sealed it. "Her birthday is coming soon. Jinyu's birthday is in the same month as hers. She asked me when I would bring Jinyu back to the capital. This year is Jinyu's coming-of-age ceremony. She asked me not to forget." Huang Zhong sighed. "Yes, in the blink of an eye, Miss is turning 15. Marquis Gu said, "There's still half a year left." The twins' birthday was in October. Huang Zhong smiled. Imperial concubine Shu must be thinking about Mississippi. Consort Shu was Marquis Gu's biological sister, and had a good relationship with the former Marquis. She was not very close to Yao Shi, the second wife. She was also indifferent to Gu Yan. Only Gu Jinyu had won her favor with his talent. Marquis Gu had a headache. He could not return to the capital now. Even if he did, he had to bring Yao Shi and Gu Yan along. After all, it was Jinyu's coming-of-age ceremony. How could he not have his biological mother by his side? Moreover, he saw that Gu Yan's condition had improved greatly, and he could return to the capital with him. Then what about Miss Huang Zhong was referring to Gu Jiao. Of course she'll be brought along. Marquis Gu said. So decisive? Are you asking for trouble? Huang Zhong was stunned. You're not going to do the blood test? Marquis Gu exploded. You have to be able to get it first. You're going to get it? Huang Zhong shrunk his neck. This subordinate doesn't dare. Marquis Gu frowned. Yenner is so close to her. There can't be a mistake. As for the catalyst, Rejuvenation Hall's medicine is temporarily effective. There's no harm in delaying the catalyst for a few days. But what? Huang Zhong asked. Marquis Gu pondered for a moment, then said, that child grew up in the countryside and has bad habits. Her words and actions are not feminine at all. When she returns to the capital, she will be criticized. Before she returns, I have to find someone to teach her a lesson. Huang Zhong's eyes darted around. Did you skip a crucial step? For example, Miss herself might not be willing? Marquis Gu flicked his wide sleeves. Humph. Is there any room for her not to be willing? This Marquis is her father. Who cares if she believes me or not? If this Marquis really wants to take her away, can she rebel? Huang Zhong curled his lip. Then who was it that Miss hung on the tree? Marquis Gu was not puffing himself up at his own cost. The person he was most worried about right now was not Gu Jiao, but Yao Shi. He did not know how to speak to Yao Shi in order to minimize the impact on Yao Shi. Where's Madam? Marquis Gu asked. Huang Zhong recalled. I think she's in the peony garden outside the hot springs. This subordinate saw Madam when I passed by. Yao Shi was indeed in the peony garden. After Gu Jinyu's peonies had been destroyed, Marquis Gu had people quickly bring over a few more. He also built a new courtyard for Gu Jinyu to use as a peony garden. This could be considered compensation for the loss of Gu Jinyu's servant, Yuru. Gu Jinyu and Yao Shi sat in the center of the peony garden playing chess. Mother, it's your turn. Yao Shi was lost in thought. Gu Jinyu waved his hand in front of her eyes. Mother. Yao Shi returned to her senses and smiled apologetically. Is it Mother's turn? Mother will see how to move. Gu Jinyu took the chess piece she had just picked up and warmly said, You've been playing for a long time. You must be tired. Why don't you rest for a while and eat something? Yao Shi nodded, and had the servant girls remove the chessboard. She brought over a plate of freshly cut fruits, and a box of osmanthus cakes that she had personally made. Gu Jinyu ate some fruits, and also took a small bite of the osmanthus cake. Yao Shi could tell that she did not really want to eat. The reason was that Jinyu's aunt consort Shu had once said that eating too much desserts would make her fat. Ever since then, Jinyu had not touched sweet things. Mother, your complexion has been good recently, Gu Jinyu said to Yao Shi with a smile. Yao Shi touched her cheek. Yes, after using Miss Gu's medicine, she felt much more relaxed. She could eat and sleep, and her mood was no longer so easily depressed. The only thing she could not understand was that she had been thinking about Miss Gu recently. She had been lost in thought just now. She should not have been so absent-minded when playing chess with her daughter. Mother, wait a moment. Gu Jinyu put down the desserts in her hand and walked to a nearby room. She took a robe and draped it over Yao Shi. The wind is strong. Be careful not to catch a cold. Her daughter was considerate, but Yao Shi did not deserve her daughter's consideration. No one knew that she had always had a secret in her heart. She had once hated Jinyu to the core. Ever since she gave birth, she had liked Guyan more than Jinyu. When she looked at the infant child, she always felt that she could not get close to him. When they were 3 years old, Guyan splashed a bowl of medicine on Jinyu. Jinyu was furious and rushed over to Guyan. She pushed Guyan to the ground and sat on Guyan's body. Guyan was pressed down so hard that he could not breathe. When she realized this, she walked over and roughly pulled Jinyu away, then gave her a slap. It was Guyan who had hit her first. It was normal for Jinyu to retaliate. Besides, they were only 3 years old. As a mother, she could have just separated the two children. There was no need to hit her. She still remembered Jinyu's shocked and hurt expression. Jinyu cried and called for her mother, but she did not feel sorry for her. Instead, she had an impulse to leave her behind. It had been so long since that incident. The two children had lost their memories of that time. She finally found her feelings for her daughter after interacting with them day after day. But every time she thought of this incident, she felt that she was not fit to be a mother. Everyone thought that her mental illness stemmed from her relationship with the Marquis and the public's criticism. But that was not the case. Every time she thought of how, as a mother, she did not love her own child, and even thought of abandoning her child. She could not forgive herself. Jinyu was a perfect child. Even if she had hurt her in the past, she still respected her, and was infinitely tolerant of her younger brother, who always bullied her. "Mother, why are you crying?" Gu Jinyu noticed Yaoshi's tears. Yaoshi wiped her tears and smiled bitterly. "Do you feel that all these years, Mother has not treated you well enough?" Gu Jinyu held Yaoshi's hand and solemnly said, "How could that be? Mother treats me very well, just like father and grandmother. You and younger brother are the people closest to daughter in the world. Daughter will love you all for the rest of her life." On the way back, Gu Jinyu was called away by a servant. Another pot of peonies had arrived. She had to inspect the goods. Yaoshi walked back to her courtyard alone, and did not let the servant girls follow her. When she passed by a fake mountain, Yaoshi heard the sound of an argument. "Do you not want to live anymore? How can you speak nonsense about this kind of thing? Be careful that someone hears and reports it to the Marquis and Madam. They will take your life." "Aunt, I am not speaking nonsense. I heard it with my own ears." Yaoshi recognized the two voices. One was Granny Fong from her courtyard, and the other was Granny Fong's niece, Cui Cui. Cui Cui was outside Marquis Gu's study, sweeping the floor. The sound of conversation continued, and Yaoshi stopped walking. "You must have misheard," Granny Fong scolded. Cui Cui loudly said, "I did not mishear. That is what the Marquis said. Our young miss was mistaken. She is not the Marquis and Madam's biological daughter." Yaoshi felt as if she had been hit in the head. She said in a daze, "What did you say? Who was mistaken?" "Madam?" Cui Cui and Granny Fong turned their heads and were both startled. Yaoshi walked in front of Cui Cui in a daze. "Say what you just said again. What mistaken? What is not your biological daughter?" Granny Fong quickly said, "Madam, don't listen to her nonsense." Yaoshi sternly shouted, "Shut your mouth." Yaoshi had a gentle personality, but even a rabbit would have a time when it was forced into a corner. Cui Cui lowered her head and stammered, Young miss was mistaken. She is not your and the Marquis daughter. The real young miss was wandering among the common people, and grew up in a village. She was ugly and stupid, and was often bullied. When the Marquis found her Yaoshi did not hear the rest of the words. She only felt her vision go dark and the world spin. Then her eyes closed, and she fell heavily to the ground. The newest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel will be updated even faster. Millions of novels will be read for free. All the novels that cannot be found online will be available here. https://www.zhhbqg.com/8964289642_896428266/115715966. HTML Genius will remember this website's address in 1 second. www.zhhbqg.com Bikuga mobile reading website. zhhbqg.com. Chapter 88. The newest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that cannot be found online are all available here. In the study, Marquis Gu was hesitating on how to speak to Yaoshi when he heard a servant report that Yaoshi had fainted. Yaoshi had been recuperating and had been living in the small courtyard. She would only come to visit Gu Yen and Gu Jinyu every day. When Marquis Gu arrived at the small courtyard, Yao Shi had already been placed on the bed by Granny Fong and Cui Cui. Granny Fong had caught a cold in the past few days and was not present to serve. Granny Fong had taken care of the matters in the courtyard and had personally gone to invite the imperial physician. Marquis Gu looked at the unconscious Yao Shi and then at the shivering maidservants in the room. His face sank. Who served the madam today? The two maidservants fell to their knees. One of them cried. This servant also does not know what happened. When this servant returned to the courtyard, the madam had already fainted in her room. Marquis Gu sternly said, How did you serve the madam? You actually let the madam stay in the courtyard alone? The other maidservant also sobbed. Marquis, please spare us. The madam usually does not like people following her. This servant did not dare to disobey. A group of useless people. While Marquis Gu was venting his anger, Granny Fong had brought the imperial physician over. The two were about to bow to Marquis Gu when he waved his hand. No need, quickly treat the madam. Yes. The imperial physician carried a medicine box and walked forward. He placed a silk handkerchief on Yao Shi's wrist and began to take her pulse. To be honest, the imperial physician was not optimistic about Yao Shi's condition. Yao Shi did not seem to have any serious illness, but her body had been exhausted long ago. She also had a mental illness and could not take any provocation. If it was serious, she could have hallucinations and go crazy, doing something irreversible. Marquis Gu was afraid of such a situation, so he had been hesitant to tell the truth. The imperial physician took her pulse for a long time this time, so long that Marquis Gu broke out in a cold sweat. How is it, imperial physician Chen? He anxiously asked. Granny Fong also looked nervously at imperial physician Chen. Imperial physician Chen furrowed his brows thoughtfully and took Yao Shi's pulse again. Strange, very strange. Marquis Gu hurriedly said. What's so strange about it? Is madam's condition serious? Imperial physician Chen shook his head. It's not serious. Yao Shi's body had always been very weak, and she could not be stimulated. Normally, when she fainted, it would be very dangerous. However, Yao Shi's pulse was steadier than expected. That was why he felt strange. What medicine has madam been taking recently? The imperial physician asked. Marquis Gu looked at Nanny Fong. Granny Fong was stunned and said, Isn't it the medicine that you prescribed? Imperial physician Chen said. Take it away and let me have a look. Granny Fong arrived in front of the dressing table and opened Yao Shi's medicine box. She took out the small bottles and jars of medicine that Yao Shi had been taking every day and handed them to the imperial physician. The small medicine bottle was filled with white pills, colorless and odorless. Imperial physician Chen had never seen this kind of medicine before. Inside the medicine jar were small bottles of granules. Imperial physician Chen had never seen this kind of medicine before, but he could smell the familiar scent of traditional Chinese medicine. He could vaguely make out the scent of ginseng, jujube, poria cocos, cinnamon, asparagus and ripe rehmannia. Medicine can be made like this. Imperial physician Chen muttered. He had only seen medicine made into pills, but had never seen medicine made into tablets or granules. Especially those white pills. He could not identify the ingredients at all. Where did these medicines come from? Imperial physician Chen asked. Granny Fong looked at imperial physician Chen in shock. Didn't you prescribe them? Imperial physician Chen said. I have never prescribed these medicines. Marquis Gu's cold gaze fell on Granny Fong. When did madam start taking these medicines? Granny Fong hurriedly explained. As for the specifics, this servant can't remember. It's been a while. Madam had never been willing to take medicine properly before. When she suddenly started taking them, this servant thought that madam had finally listened to imperial physician Chen's advice. Was it these medicines that caused madam to faint? Marquis Gu asked imperial physician Chen. Imperial physician Chen said in a low voice. It's hard to say. The calming medicine in the medicine jar should not cause any harm to the body. As for the other type of medicine, I have never seen it before, so I don't dare to say anything. Marquis Gu looked coldly at Granny Fong. Who gave these things to madam? Granny Fong said with a pale face. This servant is also not sure. Although this servant serves madam, Granny Fong serves madam the most. Granny Fong had gone to recuperate, and was not in the mountain villa. Marquis Gu clenched his fists and said, "Send someone to call Granny Fong here." Imperial Physician Chen thought for a moment and said, "Marquis, don't worry. Madam's pulse is better than before. Perhaps these 2 medicines are harmless to Madam." Marquis Gu said coldly, "Then how do you explain Madam's sudden coma?" This, Imperial Physician Chen could not explain. "Madam should wake up soon. We will know the truth when we ask her later." Granny Fong lowered her head and clenched her fists. Imperial Physician Chen wrote a prescription, and Granny Fong took the prescription to the mountain villa's pharmacy to get the medicine. When she was boiling the medicine in the small kitchen, Suetsue sneaked in from the back door. "Aunt," Granny Fong looked outside vigilantly, closed the door and said to her, "Why are you here?" Suetsue whispered. Huang Zhong suddenly went to see Granny Fong. "Did something happen?" Granny Fong narrowed her eyes and said, "Madam has been taking medicine recently, and has recovered from her illness." Suetsue's beautiful face turned pale. "What? Didn't you say that with a little stimulation, she will?" Madam Yao had been stimulated before. At that time, Madam Yao's illness was not so serious, but she almost couldn't be saved. She thought that this time it would be foolproof, but who would have thought? Consort Shu's letter has arrived. She asked Marquis Gu to bring Miss back to the capital for her hairpin ceremony. Little Gongzi's illness has improved. Marquis Gu will definitely bring Madam and little Gongzi back. As Granny Fong spoke, her cold eyes fell on the steaming medicine pot. Huang Zhong went to Granny Fong's house and brought the sick Granny Fong back to the mountain villa. Marquis Gu personally went to the study to interrogate her. Only the 2 maidservants on duty were left in the room. Granny Fong brought in a steaming bowl of medicine and said to the 2, "Okay, I'll keep watch here. Go to the kitchen and see if the madam's porridge is ready. Also, don't forget to send the fruits that Miss wanted to Lanting Pavilion." "Yes." The 2 maidservants answered and left, without a third person in the room. The silence was somewhat frightening. Granny Fong held the bowl of medicine and walked step by step to the bed. She looked down at Madam Yao, who was sleeping peacefully, and said disdainfully, "Madam, don't blame this servant. If you want to blame someone for not wanting you to return to the manor." Granny Fong pried open Madam Yao's chin and poured the medicine into her mouth spoonful by spoonful. Today was the day of Huichun Hall's follow-up examination for Gu Yan. The second boss had something to do and didn't come. Instead, Gu Jiao and the old doctor came. The 2 were directly brought to Gu Yan's courtyard by Yu Ye. Gu Yan's current condition was very stable. As long as he continued to take medicine, it wouldn't be a problem for him to live for another 2 or 3 years. The little dog's injuries had also recovered. It still remembered Gu Jiao, and ran over to Gu Jiao with its short legs. In the end it fell and whimpered. Gu Jiao thought of little Jing Kong, who always wrestled. "The doghouse from last time was broken. Let's make another one," Gu Yan said without changing his expression. Gu Jiao made a strange sound. The house she made was very sturdy. How could it be broken? The servants all lowered their heads and pretended not to know that the young master had broken down the doghouse in the middle of the night. "Okay then," Gu Jiao agreed. Making another one was no big deal. Gu Jiao stayed at Gu Yan's place for 2 hours. After finishing the new doghouse, she got up and left. After leaving the villa, she went to visit old Madam Li as usual. When she visited old Madam Li, she saw the mulberry tree and couldn't help but think of Yao Shi. She planned to see if Yao Shi's condition had improved. However, Gu Jiao went over and knocked on the door for a long time, but no one answered. Perhaps they weren't there. Or perhaps they couldn't leave because of other matters. Gu Jiao decided to come again next time. But the moment she turned around, her ears twitched and she heard an extremely painful groan. That sound was soft and far away. Normal people definitely wouldn't be able to hear it. However, Gu Jiao's training in her previous life included a listening skill. She had to be prepared to recognize the other person's breathing under the interference of hundreds of different sounds. After changing into this small body, her body was far weaker than in her previous life, but it was gradually recovering. The sound was the Marchionesses. Gu Jiao was certain of this. Gu Jiao didn't care if the door was closed or not. She took a few steps back and jumped over the wall. When Gu Jiao arrived at Yao Shi's room, there was only Yao Shi left inside. Yao Shi was lying unconscious on the bed. Her face was green and her forehead was dark. Her breathing was very weak. The room was filled with the smell of Chinese medicine, but there was no medicine bowl. Gu Jiao found a few drops of medicine that had not dried up by Yao Shi's pillow. She leaned over and sniffed. It was aconite. Aconite was a Chinese medicine that was used to relieve pain and cold, but it was poisonous. It was not easily used. Yao Shi's body was cold, so she could not touch aconite. Gu Jiao was not certain how much Yao Shi had drunk, but she had to spit it out as soon as possible. Gu Jiao pondered for 3 seconds and immediately opened the small medicine box. She took out a special infusion tube and slowly inserted it into Yao Shi's stomach through her nose. This kind of infusion tube was specially prepared for the fugitives in the organization. It was harder than normal infusion tubes and could be used to kill people. Gu Jiao did not think that she would use it to save someone. Gu Jiao took out a bottle of sodium chloride and connected it to the other end of the tube. She held the bag and quickly poured the infusion into Yao Shi's stomach. The first bag was quickly finished. Just as Gu Jiao was about to pour the second bag, the 2 young maidservants who had been sent away by Nurse Fong returned to the room. The 2 did not recognize Gu Jiao and were immediately shocked by the scene in front of them. "Who are you? What are you doing to Madam?" The 2 of them came back to their senses and pounced toward Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao could not be interrupted by them. She kicked a stool and knocked the 2 to the ground. "Maidservant A. Ah! Maidservant B. Someone come. Someone wants to murder Madam." Outside the room, Nurse Fong's hands trembled. It can't be. She found out so quickly. Marquis Gu had just finished interrogating Nurse Fong when he heard the maidservant's cries. He quickly rushed to Madame Yao's room and saw Gu Jiao pouring something strange into Madame Yao's nose. When he left, Madame Yao's complexion was still normal, but now it was blue and black, as if she had been poisoned. This girl, could it be that she was trying to poison her own mother? Marquis Gu was burning with anger and walked over with a murderous look. "Stop!" Gu Jiao ignored him and increased the pressure of the infusion. Marquis Gu saw that not only did she not listen, but she also increased the pressure. He was so angry that he pulled out the whip at his waist and fiercely whipped Gu Jiao's thin and small back. With a crack, the whip landed on Gu Jiao's back. This was not an ordinary whip. It was a military whip used for executions. Gu Jiao still did not let go of Madame Yao. Marquis Gu angrily gritted his teeth and reached out to grab Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao looked over with a cold gaze. "If you don't want her to die, then get out of my way." Marquis Gu was shocked by her murderous gaze. The last drop of infusion was poured in. Gu Jiao pulled out the infusion tube and helped Madame Yao up. She pried open Madame Yao's mouth and used her finger to check her throat. In the next second, Madame Yao's body trembled, and she spat out the medicine and the infusion. After spitting it out, Madame Yao's complexion was no longer blue, and she could breathe with some strength. At the same time, Imperial Physician Chen also arrived. He had just gone to give the Marquis Madam a pill. Why did it seem like the Marquis Madam had died in just a short while? Isn't this the little medicine boy from Rejuvenation Hall? He recognized Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao did not speak. She calmly stood up and put away her small medicine box. Imperial Physician Chen finished checking Madame Yao's pulse and frowned. How did Madame get poisoned by aconite? Marquis Gu frowned. Imperial Physician Chen looked at Gu Jiao and then looked at the medicine on the ground. He could more or less guess what had happened. Fortunately, Marquis had this little medicine boy help Madame vomit. Otherwise, Madame Yao would have lost her life. I really did not think that a little medicine boy from Rejuvenation Hall would be so powerful. Marquis Gu did not hear the rest of the words. His mind was filled with the whip he had just given her. He did not say that he had used 100% of his strength, but he had used at least 80%. Stubborn girl. Can't you speak properly? Must you take the whip? Marquis Gu would never admit that he had hit her wrongly. It was clearly because she did not explain herself that he had misunderstood. But why did he feel a little unconfident? Marquis Gu looked at Gu Jiao with a guilty conscience. He was about to say something, but Gu Jiao had already carried the small medicine box and left with an expressionless face. The wind of late spring was very warm, but her back was cold. The newest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that cannot be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642826/115685803. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Bika Go mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 89. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that cannot be found online are all available here. Marquis Gu began to order a thorough investigation of Madame Yao's poisoning. According to the two servant girls, the medicine was brewed by Granny Fong and was also sent by Granny Fong. The two of them were sent by Granny Fong to deliver something to Gu Jinyu. What happened after that was unclear. Call Granny Fong over. Marquis Gu ordered coldly. After a while, a servant came to report. Marquis, Granny Fong is missing. Marquis Gu's large palm suddenly clenched into a fist. Very quickly, he remembered that Granny Fong still had a niece-in-law in the manor. Where is that servant girl called Cui Cui? Bring her to this Marquis. Yes. The servant accepted the order and left. Granny Fong did not take Cui Cui away in order to not attract attention. When Cui Cui realized that something was wrong, she hurriedly packed her bag and left. Unfortunately, she was one step too late and was caught by the manor's guards. When she was brought to Marquis Gu, she found out that Madame Yao had been poisoned. It was easy to guess who the person who poisoned her was. It was Granny Fong. Cui Cui fell to her knees and trembled. Marquis, please spare me. It wasn't me. I don't know anything. I'm innocent. Marquis Gu said. Innocent? Then let me ask you, how did Madame faint? Cui Cui stammered. It's, Marquis Gu said sarcastically. Good, there's no use keeping this tongue. It's better to pull it out. Cui Cui's body trembled. I'll tell you everything. It was Granny Fong. Granny Fong made me do it. She made me tell Madame what I overheard on purpose. Marquis Gu's heart tightened. What did you say? Cui Cui said fearfully. I said, Miss is not her biological child. She was swapped. Bastard. Marquis Gu was so angry that he smashed the teacup beside him. Cui Cui's entire body was crawling on the broken pieces of the teacup. Her hands were bleeding, but she did not dare to move an inch. Master, please spare my life. It was Mama Fong who forced me. Marquis Gu was worried that this would happen, so he never dared to tell Yao Shi the truth. He would rather not acknowledge that child for the rest of his life than have anything happen to Yao Shi. However, he had been careful and had allowed the two lowly maids to reveal the truth. He said sternly, Madame treated her well. Why would she do that? Cui Cui sobbed. I don't know. Auntie. No. It was Granny Fong. She ordered me to do things. She never allowed me to ask for the reason. I don't know why she wanted to frame Madame. If I didn't listen to her, she would let her nephew beat me to death. Marquis, please judge clearly. This servant is telling the truth. Ah, you listen to her more than you listen to this Marquis and Madame. What? Her words are imperial edicts? At this point, how could Marquis Gu not see that Cui Cui's words were half true and half false? It was true that Granny Fong had ordered her, but her wild ambition was even more true. If she did not covet the benefits that Granny Fong had promised her, why would she work for Granny Fong? It seemed that she would not be able to get anything out of her. Marquis Gu waved his hand in disgust. Drag her out and beat her to death. Marquis, please spare my life. Marquis, please spare. The guards did not give her a chance to beat around the bush. They directly used a rag to gag her mouth and dragged her out to be executed. The guards of the villa split into 4 groups to catch Granny Fong. When the sky turned dark, they finally found Granny Fong's tracks. Unfortunately, Granny Fong had already hanged herself on a tree. Dead. In the study, Marquis Gu's face turned cold. Huang Zhong was a martial artist. He was not smart when it came to fighting and scheming. However, when it came to examining corpses, he had stayed in piles of corpses before, and had seen countless deaths. How could he not see that Granny Fong had been hung on a tree after she had breathed her last? Marquis Gu's expression was grave. So, she had someone kill her to silence her? Huang Zhong did not dare to say that she had been killed, but he was sure that Granny Fong was killed by him. Marquis Gu was silent for a long time. This Marquis knows. These days strengthen the villa's security. Other than Granny Fong, everyone else is dismissed. Yes. Marquis Gu went to Madame Yao's room. Granny Fong, who was sick, was guarding the room. Her complexion was not very good. Marquis Gu said to her, "Go and rest. You don't have to come over tonight." Granny Fong did not immediately leave. Instead, she paused and boldly asked, "Marquis, must you bring Madame back to the capital?" "What's wrong?" Marquis Gu asked. Granny Fong said earnestly, "This servant knows that the Marquis's estate dotes on Madame. However, I'm afraid that other than Marquis, no one in the entire estate would welcome Madame back." Marquis Gu clenched his fists. "She is this Marquis's wife. This Marquis will protect her. You don't have to worry." Marquis Gu's eyes were like torches. "This Marquis will not let anything happen to her again." Granny Fong did not refute and bowed to Marquis Gu. "This servant will leave now." Marquis Gu blocked the news of Madame Yao's courtyard, and did not let Gu Yan and Gu Jinyu know. 2 hours later, Madame Yao slowly woke up. Marquis Gu sat by the bed and held her hand. He asked softly, "You're awake? Do you feel uncomfortable anywhere?" Madame Yao weakly shook her head and looked at him. "Where's my child? Where is my child?" At this point, Marquis Gu had nothing to hide. He held her hand tightly and took a deep breath. "She came by just now. She's right here." Madame Yao became agitated again. Marquis Gu was afraid that she would faint again, so he quickly held her shoulders and said, "Don't be agitated. Let me finish. She's fine. I've already found her. When you recover, I'll take you to see her." Madame Yao said without hesitation, "I'm fine." Marquis Gu said, I know. It's just that it's too late today. If you go over, you'll just disturb her rest. Tomorrow morning, I promise you." Only then did Madame Yao lie back down. She looked at him in confusion. "Why didn't you tell me earlier?" Marquis Gu was silent. Madame Yao frowned. "Is it that you don't want to acknowledge that child?" Marquis Gu was so frightened by her that his little heart trembled. His strong desire to live made him decide between telling the truth and lying. "There's no such thing. Don't think too much. She's my flesh and blood. How could I not want to acknowledge her? It's just, I've already made a mistake once. I don't want to make the same mistake a second time." Marquis Gu told Madame Yao about the medicine. "I wanted to wait until I got her blood and merged it with Yen's before telling you. However, Yen gets along very well with her. I think that if they weren't connected by blood, Yen would not like her so much." Madame Yao's expression froze. "Yen has also seen her?" Marquis Gu slowly nodded. "Yes, she's the little medicine boy from the Return of Spring Hall. Is there a portrait of her?" Madame Yao was impatient to see her daughter's appearance. Marquis Gu hesitated. I'm begging you, Marquis." This was the first time Madame Yao had begged him. For the sake of a stinky girl's portrait, Marquis Gu felt very uncomfortable. However, Marquis Gu still forced himself to draw it. It seemed that he could never refuse Madame Yao. However, when Madame Yao excitedly opened the scroll, her smile froze. "What are you drawing?" "Circles, crosses, 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 crosses." Was this neither round nor square pancake a face? Were the 2 asymmetrical green beans eyes? Were her nostrils pointed to the sky? Also her mouth was crooked. Marquis Gu awkwardly coughed and said in a serious tone, "It's because she's ugly." He would never admit that his drawing was ugly. The talented Marquis Gu always had a secret that no one knew. That was, his calligraphy and drawing skills were terrible. Outsiders only knew that Marquis Gu's calligraphy could not be obtained, but they did not know that he did not dare let anyone see it. "You're the ugly one." Madame Yao threw the painting back into his arms and lifted the blanket to get out of bed. Marquis Gu immediately guessed what she wanted to do and calmly said, "Are you going to find Yen, or to ask for a portrait?" He, his drawing is not as good as mine." Madame Yao, who really wanted to beat him to death. In the end, Madame Yao managed to obtain her daughter's portrait. It was drawn by Gu Jinyu. Marquis Gu did not tell Gu Jinyu the truth, and only had her draw the appearance of the little medicine boy. Gu Jinyu's drawing skills were very good. Among the noble ladies in the capital, she was at least in the top 3. Marquis Gu brought the portrait to Madame Yao. When Madame Yao saw the little girl in the portrait, her expression froze. Currently, it was late at night. When Gu Jiao returned to the village, the sun had not yet set. Smoke rose from the chimneys in the village, and the smell of food filled the air. It was like the countryside. The Gu family had been very quiet recently. It was said that old Master Gu had lost his position as the village chief, and the Gu family's dozens of acres of farmland had been taken away. Those farmland had been allocated to the Gu family for planting. Although it was called farmland, the annual rent was only about 100 caddies. It was no different from giving it away for free. This was because they had benefited from old Master Gu and Gu Das Hun. But now it was all gone. The Gu family's days had become difficult. It was said that Gu Das Hun was about to be unable to pay his tuition fees. However, this had nothing to do with Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao could not be bothered with them. Gu Jiao's back was burning with pain. She did not pay too much attention to it, and went to the kitchen to prepare dinner. Little Jing Kong squatted in the backyard to feed the chicks. Halfway through, he grabbed a little yellow chick and walked over. "Jiao Jiao Jiao Jiao, little Chi doesn't eat. Is it sick?" "I already said that you don't know how to raise a chicken. See, you're going to raise it to death." It was Xiao Liulong's teasing voice. Little Jing Kong turned his head angrily, put his hands on his hips and stomped his feet. "I didn't. Little Chi won't die. I'm raising it well. Let me see." Gu Jiao reached out her hand. Little Jing Kong put little Chi in Gu Jiao's palm with grievance. He said those words confidently, but his eyes were a little red. It was obvious that this little guy was really worried that little Chi would die because of him. Gu Jiao touched little Chick's belly and smiled. "It's full. It can't eat anymore." "Ha." Little Jing Kong looked at little Chick with his big black eyes. He scratched his head and asked with a bitter face, "Little Chi, did you steal food again?" Little Chick. "Gee." Little Jing Kong took back little Chick, stuck out his tongue at his bad brother-in-law, and put little Chi back into the chicken coop. Xiao Lulang looked at him with amusement, then his gaze fell on Gu Jiao's face. He found that her face was paler than usual. "Dinner is ready. Let's eat," Gu Jiao said. Xiao Lulang paused. "Okay." Gu Jiao did not have a good appetite during dinner. Little Jing Kong held the bowl and chopsticks and asked her, "Jiao Jiao, are you full too?" Xiao Lulang looked at her with a complicated expression. Old Mrs. Han also looked at her. Gu Xiaoshan also looked up and said in surprise, "Sister, why do you look so pale? Are you sick?" Little Jing Kong put down the bowl and chopsticks, got up and stood on the stool. "Nonsense. Jiao Jiao won't get sick." "I'm not sick." Indeed, she was not sick. She was probably injured. It was painful, but she was used to this kind of pain in her previous life, so she did not take it to heart. She had forgotten that this body had a weak foundation, so how could it withstand a single whip from a general? At night, Gu Jiao's condition worsened. Lightning flashed and thunder rumbled in the dark night sky, illuminating the room. Little Jing Kong was lying on his small pillow on the bed, drooling as he slept. Xiao Lulang opened his eyes and looked in the direction of the door. He hesitated for a while, then sat up. He pulled up the quilt that little Jing Kong kicked over, then put on his clothes and went to Gu Jiao's room. Gu Jiao used to lock the door. Little Jing Kong woke up in the middle of the night with a nightmare. He came to her with a pillow, but could not open the door. He was so scared that he cried for a long time. After that, Gu Jiao did not lock the door. Xiao Lulang pushed open the unlocked door, and a faint smell of blood assaulted his nose. Xiao Lulang frowned, paused and stepped into the room. Gu Jiao. He called her, but she did not respond. So he went to the bed. He reached out and touched Gu Jiao's forehead. It was burning hot. Another bolt of lightning flashed, illuminating the room as bright as day. Xiao Lulang saw Shui Yi on the chair. His face changed. He picked up the bloody clothes and found that they were underwear. The cheap material was not soft, but it had been worn on her delicate skin. It was covered by the smell of blood, and it exuded a faint fragrance of a young girl. Xiao Liulang's ears were red. He saw the location of the blood and confirmed that Gu Jiao was injured on her back. He took a deep breath and planned to turn Gu Jiao over and get a doctor. His hand was just about to touch Gu Jiao when it was caught by Gu Jiao's cold little hand. She said arrogantly, "Why aren't you sleeping in the middle of the night? Are you trying to take advantage of me?" Xiao Lulang was embarrassed and explained, "No, Don't take up too much." Gu Jiao mumbled and fell asleep in a daze. So was she talking in her sleep? Xiao Liulang's breathing quickened, and cold sweat seeped out. However, this was not the scariest thing. He turned his head casually, and another flash of lightning lit up the door, illuminating the old lady's gloomy figure. His hair stood on end. The old lady entered the room expressionlessly, and put a bottle of medicine on Gu Jiao's table. Xiao Liulang's shirt was soaked. He couldn't tell if he was more afraid or guilty. After all, his hand was still on her chest. Although she was the one who pulled him over, it looked like he was the one who took the initiative. Great aunt, don't misunderstand. Aren't we a couple? What's there to misunderstand? The old lady put down the medicine and went out with a snort. Really? It was a dark and windy night. Hurry up and give her a little great-grandson. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. There are all kinds of novels that you can't find online. https://www.zhhbqg.com/8964-2_896/115685636. HTML Genius memorized the website's address in 1 second. www.zhhbqg.com Bkj mobile reading website, zhhbqg.com. Chapter 90. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. How could Xiao Lulang know what the old lady was thinking? He also didn't know where she got the medicine, but now wasn't the time to think about that. Gu Jiao's condition was very serious, so she had to be treated immediately. Although the two of them had slept in the same bed before, that was when their clothes were still intact. But now, he had to lift her clothes up. Xiao Lulang calmed himself down and gently turned her over, so she could sleep on her stomach. His slender jade-like fingertips slightly trembled as he lifted her slightly warm underwear and slowly lifted it up a bit. The whip mark was very long and extended from her right waist all the way to her left shoulder. He had no choice but to lift up all her clothes, revealing her smooth back. Her hands were on the pillow, and her body was pressed into a beautiful shape unique to a young girl. In order to see her injury clearly, Xiao Lulang lit an oil lamp in the room, but Xiao Liulang's eyes inadvertently fell on a place where they shouldn't be. His breathing quickened as he quickly turned his face away, not daring to look around. After calming himself down again, he dipped his fingertips in the cool ointment and slowly applied it to the whip mark. She seemed to feel pain in her sleep, but she only slightly knit her brows. The whip mark was very fierce, and didn't seem like it was made by a normal whip. She didn't seem like someone who would be bullied, at least not right now. Xiao Lulang couldn't help but wonder how she got this injury. Who did she offend? She didn't seem to care at all, as if she was used to it. which made him even more confused. Although she had a hard time growing up, it wasn't to the point where she was always beaten. Xiao Lulang was full of doubts as he finished applying the ointment and found a clean cloth to cover her wound. Then he pulled down her clothes and covered her with a blanket. After doing this, he planned to go back to the house. But the moment he stood up, he kicked something. There was a thud, as if a box had fallen to the ground. Then the contents of the box rolled all over the ground. Xiao Lulang picked up the small wooden box and placed it on the table. He also picked up the items on the ground and placed them on the table one by one. Then, he looked at the items piled up on the table and was a little confused. What are these things? Also, why are there so many? These strange things covered the entire table. How could a small crappy box contain all of them? On the day that Gu Jiao fell into the water for the first time, he had come to Gu Jiao's house to look for something. He was very sure that she did not have this box at that time. First, it was the inexplicable injury, then there was the strange box. How many secrets was she hiding? Xiao Lulang looked at the sleeping Gu Jiao with a complicated expression. He suddenly felt a little annoyed, but he couldn't tell what he was annoyed about. But he did not have the habit of investigating other people's privacy. He did not look at the medicine on the table and put them one by one back into the small box. After he finished, he was amazed. What kind of box was this? It was too good at storing things. This time, he really planned to go back to the house. But he didn't put the small box down properly, so it fell off the table with a thud. Once again, the things inside rolled out in a clatter. But what was surprising was that the things that fell out this time were different from before. Are my eyes playing tricks on me or? Xiao Lulang looked at the medicine on the ground strangely. For the first time, he doubted his eyes. He put the things back and planned to knock the box over again to verify it. But suddenly, Gu Jiao turned over on the bed. She pressed on her wound and let out a cry of pain. Xiao Lulang's movements paused. He suddenly realized that it was not right for him to go through the box in the middle of the night. He sighed and put the box back on the table. He turned around and went back into the house. The next day, Xiao Lulang woke up early. Gu Jiao's fever had mostly subsided, but she was still sleeping because she was too tired. Xiao Lulang did not wake her up. He went to the kitchen to make breakfast and told the old madam about it. Then he went to the academy. In the villa, Madame Yao, who had been waiting for the whole night, could not wait to ask Marquis Gu to bring her to the village. Little Jing Kong opened the door. Usually, the village did not lock the door. But today, Gu Jiao was sleeping. In order to prevent anyone from disturbing her, Little Jing Kong locked the door. Little Jing Kong poked his round little head out from the crack of the door and looked curiously at Madame Yao and Marquis Gu at the door. He knew Madame Yao. She was the beautiful benefactress who always went to the temple to offer incense. He also knew Marquis Gu. He was the bad guy who ordered him and Jiao Jiao to be taken away. The two of them were together. Little Jing Kong thought seriously. He tilted his head and asked, "Benefactress, were you also taken away by him?" Madame Yao was puzzled. Marquis Gu was embarrassed. Last night, Madame Yao asked Marquis Gu to tell her a lot about Gu Jiao. But how could Marquis Gu dare to tell her everything? At least, he did not tell her that he ordered people to take away Gu Jiao and the little baby next to her. After that, he asked around and found out that the baby was adopted by Gu Jiao from the temple. She could not even raise herself, yet she got a little baby. He did not know what this girl was thinking. Madame Yao did not understand little Jing Kong's words. But she vaguely remembered that he was a little monk from the temple. She squatted down and looked at little Jing Kong gently. "I remember you. You are the little master from the temple. What is your name?" Little Jing Kong blinked his big black eyes and said cutely, "My name is Jing Kong. I am not the little master anymore. I am going down the mountain." Madame Yao patted his little head and smiled gently. "I am looking for Jiao Jiao. Is Jiao Jiao home?" Little Jing Kong was surprised. "Oh, you also know Jiao Jiao?" Madame Yao nodded. "Yes, I know her." Little Jing Kong lowered his little head and said sadly, "You might not be able to see her today. She is sick and cannot see guests." Madame Yao immediately became worried. "Why is she sick?" Grandaunt said that she is too tired. Little Jing Kong thought for a while and said self-reproachfully, "She must be tired from taking care of me. After all, I eat so much." Marquis Gu felt a little guilty. That girl might have been injured by his whip yesterday, right? He did not dare to tell Madame Yao about this. Madame Yao looked pleadingly at little Jing Kong. Her tone was urgent, but her voice was very soft. "Can you let me in to see her? I promise I will not disturb her. I am not sure if Jiao Jiao wants to see you." "Wait, I will go and ask her." Little Jing Kong closed the door and ran into the room. He came to Gu Jiao's bed and asked very softly, "Jiao Jiao, the benefactress from the temple came to see you. Do you want to see her?" Gu Jiao was fast asleep. After a while, little Jing Kong opened the door and said to Madame Yao, "Okay, Jiao Jiao did not object. You can go in." Madame Yao went into the room full of excitement. Marquis Gu also wanted to go in. Little Jing Kong reached out a small hand to stop him. "You can't go in." Marquis Gu frowned. "Why?" Little Jing Kong raised his small chin. "Jiao Jiao did not agree to let you in." Marquis Gu was confused. Was this a question of whether she agreed or not? It was more like this black-hearted little monk did not ask at all, right? Marquis Gu said seriously, "If you have the ability, go and ask again. I don't believe that she will object." She was not awake yet. How could she object? Little Jing Kong thought for a while. "Okay." Little Jing Kong ran into the room. "Jiao Jiao, Jiao Jiao, the big bad guy wants to see you. Do you want to see him?" What did he mean by the big bad guy? It was fine that the girl was infuriating, but was the little monk she raised also so infuriating? Marquis Gu's face turned black. Little Jing Kong grabbed Gu Jiao's hand and shook it. "I know you don't agree." He walked out with his head held high and said sternly to Marquis Gu, "Jiao Jiao has rejected you." Marquis Gu. In order to prevent someone from barging in, little Jing Kong moved a small stool and sat at the door, staring at Marquis Gu like a tiger watching its prey. "Marquis Gu, what are you doing?" Little Jing Kong, "Staring at you." Marquis Gu, I will not go in." Little Jing Kong, "Then who knows?" Marquis Gu, "If you don't believe me, then lock the door." Little Jing Kong sternly said, "What if you climb over the wall? I will keep an eye on you to prevent you from doing anything bad." Marquis Gu, "In any case, I am the Marquis of Dingen in the capital. Is my reputation so bad that I need a little monk to keep an eye on me? One big and one small." Just like that, they stared at each other in front of the door. Yaoshi could not care about her husband at this time. Her heart was already filled with Gu Jiao. After she entered the room, she directly sat down beside Gu Jiao's bed. Gu Jiao's complexion was much better than last night, but it was still sickly pale. As the saying goes, the illness is in the child's body, but the pain is in the mother's heart. Yaoshi looked at her own child's illness, and her heart ached. Looking at the room she was staying in, Yaoshi's eyes were red. Yaoshi held her hand again. The calluses and wounds on her hand were so abrasive that Yaoshi's palm hurt. Yaoshi could no longer hold back and silently sobbed. The matriarch went back to sleep in the room. When she woke up, she planned to go see how Gu Jiao was doing. In the end, when she entered the room, she saw little Jing Kong sitting at the door like a small stone statue. He didn't go out. The matriarch was puzzled. Don't look at how little Jing Kong was only a 3-year-old child. He was actually very busy every day. He continued his habit of doing morning and evening classes at the temple. After he woke up, he would recite Buddhist scriptures in his heart. After he finished reciting, he would go to the small forest behind the house to practice. There was once when the matriarch came out and saw him use his hands to grab her legs and wrap her around a thick tree. The matriarch almost thought that she had seen a little snake demon. He only practiced the basics. Occasionally, Gu Jiao would practice with him. If there was no one to practice with him, he would practice on his own. He was the type that did not mix in anything. After he finished practicing, he would go find his friends in the village. At noon, he would come back to eat. In the afternoon, he would help Gu Jiao do some work. Right now, it was time for him to go to the village to cause trouble for his friends. Little Jing Kong replied, "Jiao Jiao is sick. I have to accompany Jiao Jiao." He did not allow anyone to disturb his schedule. Only Jiao Jiao could do that. This answer was not unexpected. The matriarch said, "Oh." Her gaze went past him and fell on the strange man at the door. "Who is this?" she asked indifferently. Little Jing Kong swallowed back the words "big bad guy," because he had promised Jiao Jiao that he would not tell his family that they were taken away. He did not want his great-aunt and bad brother-in-law to worry. "He's alone," Little Jing Kong said disdainfully. The matriarch thought, "How can I not recognize this person?" The matriarch did not think much of it and walked towards the door. At this moment, Marquis Gu also noticed the matriarch who was walking towards him. Marquis Gu was very clear about Gu Jiao's current situation. Not only did he know that she had adopted a little monk, but he also knew that she had a crippled husband and a great-aunt who came to seek refuge with them. Great-aunt was from the man's family. No, she was already so poor. Why did she keep bringing people into her family? Would she be able to get a grand secretary or an empress dowager? Didn't she know her own worth? Marquis Gu was furious when he thought of this. However, when the old lady got closer and he saw her face clearly, it wasn't that he didn't want to vent his anger, but that he couldn't breathe at all. "Madam, madam, madam. Empress Dowager?" Marquis Gu's knees went weak, and he fell on the threshold, prostrating himself on the ground. The matriarch looked at the stranger who fell at her feet. She touched her chin and said, "There's no need for that." Little Jing Kong turned his head and said, "He's here to look for Jiao Jiao. The benefactress has already gone in. I'm here to guard and not let him in." There was nothing wrong with not letting a man into Jiao Jiao's house. The matriarch did not suspect him, and did not bother to ask who Marquis Gu was. She yawned, and went to the backyard to eat melon seeds. Marquis Gu held his head that almost fell off and got up. From his angle, he could clearly see the matriarch sitting on the bench outside the back door of the central room. She was wearing a country bumpkin's clothes, and had an old village woman's headscarf wrapped around her head. Marquis Gu felt that she did not look like the Empress Dowager. Empress Dowager Zhuang married the late emperor at the age of 13. She was awarded the title of Virtuous Empress when she entered the palace. She commanded the harem for decades and held court for 17 years. Although she did not give birth to any children for the late emperor, she was the one who supported the current emperor to the throne. Her position in the harem and the court was unshakable. Ordinary people could not see Empress Dowager Zhuang. Marquis Gu was lucky enough to see her twice. The first time was at the palace banquet during the Hungry Ghost Festival. He only saw a figure from afar. But Empress Dowager Zhuang was so domineering that even the emperor next to her paled in comparison. The other time was when he went to the palace to visit the pregnant imperial concubine Shu. He bumped into Empress Dowager Zhuang's carriage. He retreated to the side and bowed to Empress Dowager Zhuang. He only dared to take a glance, but that sharp gaze almost made him breathless on the spot. Empress Dowager Zhuang was not a good person. Otherwise, she would not have been called the Poison Empress and the Demon Empress behind her back. The matriarch in front of him, other than her appearance, did not have the slightest bit of Empress Dowager Zhuang's aura. "Great-aunt, are you secretly eating again?" Little Jing Kong suddenly realized that there was something wrong with the sound of the matriarch cracking the melon seeds. He turned around and saw that she had unknowingly picked up the jar of candied red bayberries. The matriarch decisively turned around and shook the back of Little Jing Kong's head. "Don't talk nonsense. Where would I have it?" As she spoke, she grabbed a handful and stuffed it into her purse. By the time Little Jing Kong came to collect the jar, she had already stolen a lot. Marquis Gu saw everything and was even more certain that this person was a foodie and not the vicious Empress Dowager Zhuang. Inside the room, Gu Jiao slowly woke up. She could have woken up earlier, but in order to let her sleep peacefully, Yaosher made a curtain at the last minute to cover the window. The dim light really made it easy to sleep, so Gu Jiao slept until noon. She opened her eyes and found someone sitting by the bed. Alarm bells suddenly went off in her heart. She pulled out the dagger under the pillow and put it around the other person's neck. She put the tip of the dagger against the other person's neck and locked the other person in her arms. "Jiao Jiao, it's me," Yaosher said. Gu Jiao heard the familiar voice and paused. The vigilance between her eyebrows disappeared. She took the dagger and let go of her. Madame Gu. Just now Yaoshi was so shocked that she broke out in a cold sweat. She turned around and calmed down. She reached out to touch Gu Jiao's forehead. How do you feel? Gu Jiao subconsciously turned her head to avoid her hand. Yaoshi's expression froze and she said embarrassedly, "Did I scare you?" The light in the room was a bit dim. Gu Jiao did not see that her eyes were red and swollen, but she saw the blood on her neck. It was from when she was holding her hostage. She was in a high fever, so her strength was not as precise as usual. She had accidentally injured her. But her first reaction was not to notice her own injury. Instead, she paid attention to Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao looked at her with a complicated expression. Yaoshi noticed Gu Jiao's gaze and used a handkerchief to cover the wound. She smiled and said, "I'm fine. Jiao, how do you feel?" This was the second time she had asked. Gu Jiao thought for a bit before replying, "I'm also fine. What is Madame Gu doing here?" "I came to see you," Yaoshi said as she walked to the window and pulled open the curtains. The strong light shined through the paper window. Gu Jiao slightly closed her eyes. After adjusting to the light, she said, "Madame Gu has just been poisoned. You should rest in bed." Yaoshi's gentle gaze fell on her small face. "I know. I came today because I have something to say to you." Gu Jiao looked at Yaoshi and suddenly found that there were tears in her eyes. Yaoshi stepped in front of her step by step and held her hand. She carefully looked at her thin face. Her body was very weak, but this time she had a lot of strength. Jiao, I am your mother." The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhhbqg.com/89642_8964286/115650548. HTML Genius remembered this website's address in 1 second. www.zhhbqg.com Bikuga mobile reading website. zhhbqg.com. You're tuning in to the Earbook Haven YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.